You guys, the kid is 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 the kid. It's your main man here, Double H, trying to live, trying to exist, trying to stay alive, trying to do my thing, man. So we are back in here again for another of these series that happens every weekly, the Stay Black series, where we just talk about racial issues and issues to do with Africans, African Americans, Black people in the diaspora, and so forth. So this is maybe just carrying on from the kind of last kind of thing that we sort of talked about, I think, with Daniel some days ago, which is about Obama, really. Obama expanding thoughts on Trump and also Biden, obviously, with the elections in America coming soon. But also, I want to expand that into politics and what people think about voting and different people's political ideologies and so forth, and whether and what kinds of politics should African Americans, Black people really be following and so forth. So I want to start with Obama because I think that's very interesting, because I've always been very interested in how people in America saw him. Because see, there is the Obama from non-Americans who look at him from people not living in America, and then there's the Obama for people in America. See, for me, let me just give him a little tidbit. I didn't think he was going to win. And I said, there is no way they are going to pick a non-white. First of all, there's no way they're going to pick a non-white president of America. That's not happening. Secondly, I said that it is more likely they will pick a woman than they will pick a non-Black president. So the fact that it's actually happened, because remember, I was there thinking, no, this is historic. This is historic. And he beat John McCain. So I thought, this is crazy. So as I was looking at him and so forth, again, my thing was, oh my gosh, you now have a mixed race president, a guy who's half Black, half white. This is a great opportunity to completely and totally change the dynamics of America. So no longer can you say about, hey man, like if only we had one of our own in there and everything, but now you now have a guy calling the shots. But what I learned is there is only so much a president can do. A president can't do everything. They can't do everything and their hands are tied. And I was sort of, even if Obama did do a lot of good stuff, Obama did was good, I just felt, again, from far out, I just thought that there would be far more monumental changes within America, specifically for African Americans. Because I thought, wait a minute, if you have a guy who is literally someone of your own, from your own community, who has the highest office, then everything you sort of complained about, everything that you've struggled through, he can just do it just by a decision. But then again, you now know about the Senate, people blocking him, the different kinds of red tape you have to go over and so forth. So look at Obama's 8 years. For me, I felt that the real victory was Michelle Obama. I think having a fully 100% Black woman as the first lady was crazy. And I still believe she's the best first lady America's ever had. But looking at those 8 years, even if I do, because I think it's something that my brother told me. My brother said, look, man, these dudes blocked him at every single way. So before you come out and say, hey, what did Obama do? Just realize that this people really fought him at every single one, and they ensured that, man, this guy did not want to win. Hence why you now have Trump coming in as an answer to Obama. But again, maybe this is also why I want to bring in these guys to give their thoughts. Maybe it was my naivete or so for thinking that the first Black mixed race president would come in and totally change African Americans' access to education, change the poverty line within Africa, and give them far better access to education than they previously had before. Because again, the whole thing was like, look, man, there's just some white dude as president. This white guy from the elite and so forth doesn't give a damn about the average Black guy. But for someone like Obama, boom. So let me confess to Sam. So when you look at Obama's 8 years and his effect specifically for African Americans, do you say that he was successful? Do you feel he could have done more? Do you feel he did enough? Where do you rank the whole Obama thing?
I think he could have done more. The only thing, though, is it depends on what direction you go and what ideology you have. Because there's, I mean, throughout the political spectrum, I mean, which does apply to everybody. There's different ways of how people see finance and people see money, because that really the essential goal for us to achieve the American dream is money. It's to it's for us to have that, to have, I mean, you could exaggerate and say 40 acres and a mule, but like have our own piece of land and like just be able to sustain ourselves. And with that, you can talk about things like tax breaks, providing assistance such as loans, but really, what can the president do? I mean, like it comes down to that. Like, what exactly can he do? What exactly can he do for us that, I mean, apart that he can do on his own accord without support of, without requiring support from the the Supreme Court, or requiring support from the Senate or the House. I mean, pretty much he can sign executive orders. Executive orders can do a bit of work, but he also still has to convince the House, the Senate, and the Supreme Court to actually approve other things. So I think, I mean, for what he had limited, is really to see. It's really it's really hard to tell, honestly.
Okay. So you're maybe leaning towards the fact that it's hard to say because you don't know how much his hands were tied.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like a lot of things that he wanted to do, he had his hands tied on. I mean, there were a couple of things he did which, because really, if you think about it, you got to also consider he can't focus solely on the black community. So he's going to target
Yeah.
so his main target's going to be essentially the places where the black community are hit the hardest. That's going to be inner city, inner cities. It's going to be hitting the poor. Um, I mean, basically going at programs that target the poor, that target people that are in urban development, people that are in areas where they don't have proper health care. I mean, essentially areas there. You're not going to, and expand to other things such as opportunities, such as investing more money in the inner cities. Those are like the things that would really affect, that you can affect black people without directly affecting black people.
Okay. CA.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is a good topic, man. Thanks for having me on again. I appreciate it. My sense, or my 2 cents to add to this is, coming from an African American perspective, just like Sam, typical African American perspective, I would say that Obama didn't grow up like a typical African American, right? So there was always this sense of like authenticity. I mean, in the beginning, when I first saw his his DNC speech in 2004, I was like, okay, this guy's going to be president. I knew it because he was eloquent, he was well spoken, he wasn't scary, he was married to a black woman, which is important for African Americans. And I mean, he had all the points, man. I knew he was going to win. I knew he was going to win. There was no doubt in my mind when he was running during the debates with John McCain. No doubt in my mind that he was going to win because he was just better. He was a better candidate. But he didn't grow up a typical African American. He grew up with a white family in Kansas. His father was from Kenya. He went to school in Indonesia. There was always this question about Obama's authenticity, in my opinion. When you see Obama speak off, when you see Obama speak off the cuff, when he's relaxed, if you read his book, like, I read Dreams of My Father. I read that one around the time he got elected. You see that there's no doubt that he grew up in the U.S. as a black man. There's no doubt he experienced the same things in his life that I experienced. So that kind of like, relaxed me a little bit. But I know other black people that were like, why isn't he doing more stuff for black people? And what the hell, I think in order to appreciate Obama, you need context, you need time. And, at first people were like, why isn't he helping blacks? And then they were kind of, and then when he passed legislation to make gay marriage legal in the U.S., blacks in the U.S. are really angry because, again, African Americans are kind of traditional. We don't really ride with that whole gay marriage thing like a lot of people think. Just because we ride with the Democratic Party don't mean we ride with the gay marriage thing. So a lot of black people were like kind of confused about that and angry about that. But I would say 4 years after his presidency, I think he was one of the most composed, one of the most polished presidents that we had in recent memory. He was also one of the most disrespected presidents that we had in recent memory. I can think of a lot of moments where he was publicly disrespected. Where the guy said "you lie" on during the middle of his State of the Union speech.
Yeah.
During one of the crises when he flew down to Arizona to meet the governor, this bitch was pointing her finger in his face on the tarmac in the middle of the cameras, like cussing him out basically. Man, I never seen a president get treated like that before. I was like, wow, a governor doing that. So but he was very much a typical Democrat. Obama could have been a little tougher on black fathers, but that's not a normal Democratic thing to do really. So he was kind of typical. He was kind of a typical Democrat, I think, man. But I did kind of have the feeling he would win. There are a lot of guilty liberal whites in the U.S. who were very excited to vote for someone who is cool, who's eloquent, who's smart. He's not too dark, He's not Wesley Snipes. You know what I'm saying?
Why does everyone always go there? I was about to say that he's no Wesley Snipes.
I think
everyone always goes to Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes is like the gold standard for dark brothers, man. I mean, at least in the States, he's the gold standard for dark brothers, bro. I mean, Idris is dark too, but he's not as dark as Wesley though. But yeah, he was very much a very token black person for a lot of white people. He was an easy vote for a lot of white liberals. Very easy vote. And a lot of white conservatives too, because a lot of people, they want to be part of history, man. A lot of Republicans, I work around mostly conservative people. And a lot, even there, they were like, man, I want to be part of history. I want to be part of voting for the first black president. He's not bad. Everybody liked John McCain, but John McCain, that first election was easy, man. John McCain was kind of like old, out of touch kind of guy. I mean, John McCain was
you've already seen it before already, yeah.
Yeah, he's a good politician, but I mean, Mitt Romney was the one I was more worried about,
Okay.
But yeah.
But Mitt Romney was more like a vanilla version of Trump, if you think about it.
I think Mitt Romney was doing good until that leaked audio came out of him at that dinner talking about, what did he say? He said something about people who vote for him are stupid or something like that, or he said something like that. Like it was some leaked audio, and that fucked him up. I mean, nowadays stuff like that wouldn't even derail Trump, but back in the day, that basically derailed Romney's presidency.
No, look, we'll get to Trump. Nothing can destroy Trump. So what's it called, Corey? Thoughts on Obama and his tenure then?
Yeah, just to finish that off. Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean the other Corey.
Corey
White. If your mic is working there, Corey White. Okay, all right. So obviously, when your mic is working, okay, there you go.
I'm sorry, I'm busy at house. I'm just listening while I work, man.
So can you speak or you're busy?
Oh, I can't speak right now. I'm listening in. I'm going to chime in a little bit.
Okay, cool. All right, so I want to now move over to Biden and Trump before we really talk about politics. So this is where I stand on the whole Biden Trump thing.
I'm sorry to bother, and I think it's one thing we do have to address about Obama.
Okay, go for it. What?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple comments on the side saying that, like, talking about saying he's not black enough. I mean, like, and that was kind of the image of Obama, like, because in the beginning, people were like, "Oh, first black president," but like over time, like people had that just belief, and there was a narrative being pushed saying that he was in the black community, saying that he was not black enough, that he was the first mixed president, and so on and so forth. And even like some conservatives were trying to push that as a way to disrupt like support for him. Another one too was also like I mean, just that they also the narrative that was the narrative in the white community, that I mean that this black president was a Muslim and that he was all this and that. And
Barack Hussein Obama.
Yeah, and they really focused a lot on that, and it's just
and the birthday thing too.
Yep.
But the funny thing though, and what I've always found, I don't know whether you guys will agree, the mixed race people are ones who fight much harder for racial issues than people who are fully black. Now, I have a theory on that we can probably get onto a bit later on. But what you'd find are the so-called mixed race, lighter skinned black people are the ones who are at the forefront and fight much harder and are ready to really put their necks to the line a lot more for racial issues than people who are fully black or dark skinned and so forth. I'll tell you the reason for that when we get there. But I think, look, people saying that, see, I never heard that narrative of Obama is not black enough. I never heard that. What I obviously heard from people were like, I thought you were going to do more. But what you find is that, and I think this is what's, you know what I found out about this? There's this film called, I think, Nixon, or by Oliver Stone, starring Anthony Hopkins. When I watched that film, then I learned about how, man, presidents, they don't really have that much power. It's all about lobbies, those who supported you, and you sort of making sure that all the people who made you president are happy. And what people have always said is that, wait, where did Obama come from? Knowing something about where Obama came from and the kind of people who got him there, you're like, you know? So a president isn't this leader who can come in and just change things and so forth. That's only happens if you're a dictator. So if you're a dictator, then that is where that's maybe more prevalent, where a dictator can come in and literally what he says is gospel, and also what he says goes. So I wanted just to sort of move this on to Trump and Biden. Now, where I stand with this whole Trump and Biden thing is that I really believe that Trump is going to destroy Biden in the debates. In the debates. Because first of all, I really want to get onto why Republicans is stupid. But first of all, let's just deal with Biden and Trump. Now, I don't know how they landed with Biden in here, because to beat someone like Trump, you need someone radical. I don't see any difference between Biden and Hillary Clinton. They are literally one of the same. So the only hope that sort of Democrats have of defeating Trump is if Trump defeats himself. Biden won't defeat Trump. Trump will defeat himself. So only if he does something that is so irrevocable, or people have to say, you know what, after these 4 years, F this, I want to go back to this other dude, man. So let me come to Sam first with this. This November, okay, so if, let's say, you're in America, I don't know whether you can still vote in American elections or not, but let's say if you could, who would you vote for? Would you vote for Trump, Biden, or you'd just abstain or not vote for anyone?
That's a secret normally. But then again,
we're all friends here.
I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. But like, I'll be straight up. I know this, like, I'm gonna vote for Biden. I'm gonna just be straight up, because I really can't fucking stand. I can't fucking stand Trump. I can't stand Trump at all. But the issue though is that, yeah, what's up?
No. So you don't vote for Biden. Is it because you want to vote for Biden or because you hate Trump?
I'm voting for Biden just because I hate Trump. That's it. And the problem with this election and with the past couple elections is that's how it's been. You vote for people you're voting for people in spite of the other guy. I mean, like, how is that a proper election? Because, like, here's the issue. We got three candidates. We're looking at right now. We got Donald Trump, we got Joe Biden, and we got a third candidate, which is Jo Jorgensen, female. She's an independent. Not a lot of people know about her. She's a libertarian. But the problem is, though, that never in the history of the United States has a third party ever won the election. I mean, they usually when they come in, that independent candidate tends to get maybe somewhere at most 10% of the total votes. And they usually tend to be somebody that's really boring as shit. As far as the actual candidates we're looking at, you got a guy who's very, very extreme. He's not a classic Republican. And then you got somebody who's pretty much a plain Jane vanilla, like a not only senile, but a plain Jane vanilla Democrat. And yeah, that's not going to turn out well. Just like you said, it's going to be an extreme case, someone who's extreme versus someone who's like more of the same, really, pretty much.
Okay. CA, how do you say it? Who is your votes for? Who are you leaning towards?
Yeah,
Biden,
I mean,
Trump, or
I'm for Trump 2020 all the way, baby. No, I'm just joking. I'm joking. No, I mean, like a lot of people here, man, and in your audience, I'm no fan of Trump. I'm probably not going to vote for Trump. I'm probably going to vote for Biden just because, I'm from the same state as Biden. Biden is really big in Delaware. Delaware is a small state. Biden is really big there, and Biden is a typical pandering politician, man. Like he's not like there's nothing special about Biden. If you look at his views on issues as time has gone on, from the 70s to the 80s to the 90s, he started off as like any other Democrat back in the day, racist, just don't get it, just out of touch. And today, at best, he's just an out of touch white man. With the whole Charlemagne Breakfast Club interview, where he said, "If you don't vote for me, what did he say? If you don't vote for me."
black.
Yeah. That's just an out of touch white man right there. It's an out of touch white man. He probably got no black friends under 70 years old. So yeah, that's what that's. And at worst, he's just acting. He's just a cold-hearted politician who's just acting.
Okay.
But
here's my question for both of you guys then, because and this is just the thing that I find the saddest. He can do that Breakfast Club interview. If you don't stand for me, you ain't black. He can do all the things where he's so obviously pandering. But people like Jamel Hill will still say, hey, to get Trump out of there, we could have voted for Biden. Biden is right by saying that stuff. And there's still black people who will still say we ride with Biden. What is it that still makes African Americans, despite whatever Biden can say, the Democrats can say, like Hillary and Biden can say, like they can literally go to sleep, do nothing, and there's still going to be a large portion of African Americans who will still go out and vote Democrats. What is the specific portion or wizardry thing that the Democrats have over Americans and blacks in America?
I mean, the answer is simple, man. It's because it's a two-party system. You choose the lesser of the two evil. If you decide to cast your vote for an independent party, like Sam pointed out, independent presidential candidates have never won anything, have never won a presidential election. You're just siphoning off black votes that can go towards the Democratic Party, and Republicans are going to win. So you're just basically voting either vote for the Democrats or vote for the party that's not going to win. Those are the only choice. Those are the only options.
Yeah.
But if I can just finish about Trump. I would just say, before George Floyd, I would say that the Democrats, the Democrats didn't really have a chance to win. They didn't have a chance.
I think before COVID, I'd even go.
Well, COVID, George Floyd. I was going to say, COVID and George Floyd. Before that, I would say, the Republican Party was probably going to win, especially consider the incumbent president usually always wins, with the exception of like Bush and Jimmy Carter. Because the only times every other president for like the last 50 years have gotten 8 years in the White House. So I mean, the odds are on his side. But but the way Trump has been handling the racial protests and COVID, I mean, I don't know anymore. Trump has decided to double down on his retarded base, which are a bunch of people in the U.S. who are living in the fucking past. These are people who think the coal is going to come back, they don't. These are people who don't understand that the rest of the world is not swallowing that far right bullshit. These are people who don't like computers, who don't know how to code, and who don't like the fact that in Silicon Valley there's a whole bunch of brown people there, and they feel like they should have jobs. They should have those jobs because they're the real white Americans. These are his base, and he's doubling down on that. These are people who are going to lose. So I think that's not a smart choice for him. But then again, he's not really a smart person. So I mean, that's why I think he's not going to win.
Wait, okay. So you said you were going to vote for Biden?
Yeah. If I do vote, I'm going to vote for Biden.
Okay, so
let's talk about the Democrat Party too, because Democrat versus Republican Party, and the big reason why blacks vote primarily for the Democratic Party. The big thing over the past couple of years, I would say since what's considered the big switch. Have you ever heard of the big switch, by the way?
No, what's that?
You're talking about the Southern strategy?
Yeah, or the Southern strategy would be another term for it. So originally, the Republican Party and the Democrat Party in the U.S. had different ideals. So if you ever heard of a term Dixiecrat, like Democrats back pre civil rights movement were all about things such as such as white supremacy, basically black people this, and they were the party that advocated for slavery. And then Republicans were the opposite. The very first Republican president was Abraham Lincoln, basically the first official president of that party, and he was the one who obviously abolished slavery. And then a couple other policymakers throughout the times, they've done things such as Eisenhower and so on. But then again, fast forward to the civil rights movement, and that's when the big switch happened. I mean, Lyndon B. Johnson was one of the big advocates for that switch. While he had his terms and while he had his ideas, like the Civil Rights Act of the 1960s, that essentially caused that shift. And not only that, but also it also changed not just the candidates and the politicians, but also the people that followed the party. Not just black people, but white people. Because a lot of like liberal white people joined them, and then they tended to talk more about that and progressiveness. And obviously, as with liberalism, there's the whole progressiveness, inclusiveness. One of the other reasons too why I would say why a lot of black people are drawn to the Democratic Party is because a lot of black people are poor, and one of the big draws of the Democratic Party is basically offering, and I mean just the left in general. I wouldn't even say.
Wait, actually, is this true or is this both? Democratic Party founded the KKK.
Yeah. Sam is saying right. He's saying that basically ideology has changed over time. Or no, I'm sorry. Ideology has stayed the same. Conservative, liberal ideology stayed the same, but the party names have stayed the same. But the parties have switched ideology over time. Back in the day, Republicans, their ideology was more closely to liberalism. The first black free slaves were Republican. The first black governors during Reconstruction were Republican. A lot of black politicians were Republican. The Democrats were Klan. Yeah, the KKK was discovered, or the KKK was founded by a bunch of Democrats. A lot of the Southern governors, the mayors, the governments in the Southern states were Democrat, and you still have some living Democrats to this day who are racist as fuck, and they used to be part of the Klan, and they are registered Democrat because the ideologies used to be different.
I think the other boy wants to talk, man.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with what the gentleman was saying about the timeline, about the switching of the parties and whatnot. Being a fellow that's been primarily raised in the South, I've seen that firsthand with a lot of my close friends growing up in small rural town America in the South. And he's right. There was a point around Reconstruction, but also I think it's also fair to point out that a lot of black people freed slaves and were like you said, conservative Republicans too. But I also think that we are conservative by nature, right? I think that we as a people, we try to develop an equilibrium with our environment up to and including the point of integration, the Civil Rights Movement Act of 1964, as the gentleman alluded to say earlier. I think me personally, I've always thought of us as politically fluid, right? I've always thought that we would go with who is going to have who we think have our best interests at heart, right? And like he said, to touch on what he said about being, black people being by and large below the poverty line, especially in the South, I can't speak for my brothers up north or out west, but, I think that a lot of that he's saying is correct in that, it has a lot to do with income, and what we have and what we don't have and all that stuff. And again, going back to saying us being politically fluid, I've always been one to vote for who I thought had my and our best interests at heart. I don't think I've ever voted straight ticket, right, one way or another. I think that, I've always said, well, who's going to do the most for the black community, or who's going to do the most to benefit, my people, the forgotten people when it comes to politics and many other things, but politics in this case. So I think we should, and we put pressure on each other. I've always wondered why, like you said, why we put pressure on each other to vote Democrat. And they got us, man. In my opinion, they got us. They took our, they took our WIC programs, developed it into welfare for the white women. And then when they seen that wasn't producing enough money for them, then they started to feed on us. They have a tendency to do that with their government. Both Democrats and Republicans have a tendency to feed on their own once they've gotten what they need out of us. That includes our vote too. They'll promise us, chicken and hot sauce, or they'll pimp and pen and say, what the hell you got to lose, just to get us to make our mark on the paper. And then once we've made our mark in support of the said candidate, it's like, oh shit, well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that matter. We'll get to that issue. And then election after election, we continue to get forgotten. They might give us a few crumbs here and there. 45, I won't say his name in my place, but 45, he done signed some money for some HBCUs and things like that, but his dog whistling politics and, Nixon type tactics, and all that shit got to go, man. That don't work for us because it works against us. You know what I mean? They throw them damn dog whistles and shit out there like it did at Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, okay. and people like Kansas Owens think that all you have to do is switch over to the Republican Party, the so-called Blexit, and everything's going to be okay. I'm like, okay, that sounds exactly like what the Democrats are pandering. Also, all you have to do is switch over to the Republicans and everything's going to be okay. I'm like, come on, man.
No, man, anybody trying to coon out like that, man? Not like her, anyway.
Exactly. No.
Am I down with having, strong defense and having the biggest gun? Yeah, I am. I want all in. I want the strongest locks on my front door here. I want the biggest gun in my nightstand. But I'm not out here waving it. Hey, I got the biggest, strongest locks. That's just inviting somebody to come try to break into your shit. Or you up here waving your big ass gun. That's just inviting somebody else to come with a big gun. So I'm all about having a defense. So I kind of, honestly, I wanted to like 45, right? I want to like that dude. Goddamn, dude, every time you touch Twitter or you get on TV, you say some, what my man T.I. say, but you start on some bullshit.
Yo, hey, this dude dropped a 55. We got to get into that.
Martin Rosario's super chat. But let me just ask this, because here's my thing. The two-party system is complete BS. It is complete and utter BS. Both parties don't have Black people's interest at heart. Both of these organizations and institutions are exactly that, institutions. Because whether you're Democrats, okay, Republicans are sort of presented as, oh my gosh, what racism, these are the supremacists. But what I found about Republicans, my uncle is a surgeon and he lives in Atlanta. And he's a Republican because that works for him and his family financially. So Republicans aren't these guys, oh, no. It depends on, does that work for you? And for Republicans, they work for him. You see, the thing with the Democrats, though, is they know what they're selling. They're selling that we're not the Republicans. We are for you. We are for Black people and so forth. And the annoying things that you see a Jay-Z, a LeBron, a Beyonce, these celebrities, they all come onto the stage with these dudes, and because so people in our society are so brainless, and because we care so much what that flipping loser coon moron Kanye West says, guys like, oh, Jay-Z is a thingy, oh, LeBron's with Hillary, I'm going to support because I love, which is just mind crazy. So my thing is there a way that maybe African Americans can maybe develop like their own system and their own party system or something completely separate? So this is one thing. Do you think there's a way where African Americans en masse, not everyone, but en masse, can say, screw Republicans and Democrats, I'm voting for a wholly new system, or rather I'm focusing my efforts on local elections? Or do you feel because of slave mentality, the Democrats will always have this power over Black people? Sam?
The only way that, to me, here's the deal. It's simple. The only way that you can sway Black people away from the Democratic Party is if you actually listen and talk to Black people, like, first of all, like grown-ups and with respect. And I feel a lot of cases, a lot of things that the Black community talks about is ignored. It's just straight ignored. Like, when they talk about issues like a lot, like, and I'm not even talking about because Trump, when it's with Trump Republicans straight ignore black issues, and they try to push stuff like, oh, we're putting more money in the economy and putting all this money in all these non-skilled jobs so you can have all these unskilled jobs that really only help, which are only a band-aid over the issue. But they don't talk about the things that actually concern black people. When you talk about the things that concern black people, you will get votes from black people. That's it. There's not much more to that. And honestly, like, dude, like this Martin dude, I want to see his comment.
Okay, we'll get there because I'll show his comment. So let me just get views from there, and then we'll go to Martin's comment. So CA, do you see and envision a time in which African Americans can totally dismiss the democratic wizardry, or do you think that due to slave mentality, there'll always be a slave to the trickery of the Democrats?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, you know, if you look at the history of African Americans haven't always voted Democrat. African Americans haven't always been afraid and fucked up. You know, African Americans in the 1920s, 1930s, you know, core nuclear family, everybody hardworking, mother stayed at home, kids went off to a college, to HBCU, or they had a job. There weren't any of these issues like we have now. So, I mean, like to say that will black African Americans ever do that? I mean, I say, will we ever come back to that? Because we were that before, you know. So I think today, if you know, African Americans and black people in general living in the U.S., we have to get along first. You know, that's the biggest hurdle. I think we don't get along with each other. So I mean, I don't know how we expect to do business with each other. You know, have a closed kind of economy or system, political system, financial system with each other, and trust each other if we don't even like each other. I'm sorry. I mean, I know it's a fucked up thing to say, but I mean, I don't know how it is in the UK, but in the US, African Americans really don't get along with each other. And I've been reading. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, because I want to just quickly get to this thing because I want to actually get back on that somehow. Yeah. But let me just get Corey's view on it. So, Corey, do you see it a time when African Americans don't vote for Democrats en masse?
Yeah, I kind of follow what Brother Killer Mike was saying during the Revolt Summit sometime back, in that, you know, you get to a point and there's two slaves arguing about who's got the best mast and the biggest plantation, when you should just burn both houses down and build your own. Now, is that feasible? I don't necessarily think so, but that's a kind of a longer route, right? So I think that one of two things can happen. We could hijack this, you know, and I use hijack loosely, this Libertarian Party. You could make that, you know, the party for black people, change the values. Politics and values change all the time. Remember the gentleman talked about the big switch back in the day. So we could do that. Hijack the Libertarian Party, make that the party for black people. But I do think, like the gentleman just said before me, we do have a problem here in America, and I didn't realize you're in the UK. That's cool as shit. I thought you was like in California or some shit. But I think that if we do that, you know, like he said, it's hard for us to get along and hard for the degree. I don't think it's too terribly difficult because we are able to come together under one cause. So if we formulate our plan right, we could do it, you know. But if we go and establish our own party, you're actually going to have, it's not going to be a third. You're going to have to establish two more. You're essentially going to have 4 parties now, you know, black conservative, black, you know, black liberals, so on and so forth, black Democrats, you know, because you can't expect everybody to think the same just because we all black. You dig what I'm saying? So thinking logically about it, if you create one party for black people, you're actually going to have to create 2, essentially creating 2 political parties right there to push their own agendas and you know, that are specific to the black community. Now, will that person be able to go and say, you know, I'm president, I'm for black people, this is what I'm going to do, without pissing off white America, Democrat or Republican? You know, are you going to be able to do that? Who knows? You know, I think that's going to be another hurdle to that, when you got a black candidate coming to the table saying, I'm doing this for black people, I'm doing that. And now I do believe that there is you can appeal to a Republican's logic. You can sit there and talk to him sometimes and get him to understand, yes, I'm doing this. Yes, I'm pro-black. This is not anti-white. But we have problems in, for example, Chicago. And I hate to beat that dead horse because King's been riding that same horse since he was alive, back 60 years ago. But use Chicago, for example. I can say, okay, I'm strong on Chicago. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to clean it up while I do everything else. You cannot omit everything else. You can make that a main focus, but you can't omit everything else. So there's a little bit of a back and forth that you'll get in if you have a clear black politician or presidential candidate or something like that is going to say, I am for black people, but, right? Just like Black Lives Matter should have said Black Lives Matter too. Hell of a whole lot better marketing, pal. You probably would have went over a lot better, got some support from outside the community, but it didn't go that way. So, but I think that, if we do that, then we better be prepared for some backlash and some back pressure on that. But it can be done. We just got to select the right leaders to put in place. And we ain't talking about like my man said, Jay-Z, Beyonce's and whatnot. I mean, hell, we could have did Michael Jordan a long time ago, but, MJ ain't trying to get involved in no politics, dude, so.
Okay. If I can just jump in for a sec, how does the America could benefit definitely from a coalition type of system like they have in the U.S. or they have in Europe, because we have too many ideas and too many leaders just for two parties. We need something like a coalition system where everybody kind of like sucks everybody in, and we kind of do that now. Bernie Sanders was independent, but he ran on a Democratic ticket. We kind of do that stuff now, but we need it on a much bigger level, like how you guys have in the UK with your coalition system, or the rest of Europe.
So before I just sort of respond, let me just hit the super chat before I let this go, then I'll respond to that. So shout out to your man, Mountain Rosario, for the dub, man. Thank you, bro. Thank you, bro. Thank you for the support and the love, man. So LBJ, who I believe is Lyndon Johnson, was just the figurehead in passing the Civil Rights Act. In reality, the Republicans-led Congress pushed that and the Voting Rights Act forward into law. And LBJ literally said he'll have those N-words, niggas, voting Democrats for 200 years. Look it up. So anyone, is this actually true?
Yeah, both of those are very true. Because, there was a fact check on, it wasn't officially recorded. That quote wasn't officially recorded, but on record, there were numerous sources that state that the quote that he said was very true. As far as the first part of it, that was true as well. Because for an act to get pushed through, the only way that is capable of happening is if it gets agreed on by the House and by Congress. And Congress is like the last line of defense when it comes to that. And pretty much you need on Congress, which usually the way our Congress works, the majority will usually like people within the party will always follow the votes of the people within their party. So like if there's a vote where it's like mostly Republican, you may only see like out of like how many congressmen do we have? Like 300, 400? Like you'll see like maybe only like 2 or 3. There may be like 250 on one side, 250 on the other, and like maybe 5 or 10 of those congressmen don't vote with the bill of their party. That's pretty much what it is.
Okay. What's it called? CA, you want to comment on this?
Yeah. I have to do the research on that. Like the website said, it says it's unproven. Like Sam said, there's no audio on it. He was one of the presidents that didn't record himself that much, unlike Richard Nixon, who actually did use the N-word when he was talking about the war on drugs. But he was one of the presidents that didn't really record himself. So I don't really know, man. LBJ was a Southern Democrat, so you know what that means. And he inherited the presidency after Kennedy died. So Kennedy only put LBJ on his vice presidential ticket to get more Southern Democratic votes, because Kennedy was very liberal. So I don't know, man. I don't know what kind of man LBJ was. I know he signed the Civil Rights Act in 1965. The bill helped not just black people, the country after that. And was he genuine about it? I don't know. I'd have to do more research on it. But he was a white Southern Democrat. So I mean that says a lot right there.
No, okay. So sorry. Before I go to sort of Corey, there. See, my thing about it is, again, look, who knows? It's not proven. We don't know. And I mean, obviously, we always need hard evidence. But I just sort of connect the dots. And my theory is, if we are the party that pushed forward this civil rights bill, and I ensure and let African Americans know that, yeah, the Republicans didn't do this, I did it, my party did. And we use that stick or use that carrot to just hold up to African Americans, hey, look at what we did. You owe us. And African Americans will almost feel indebted to them. In theory, it is something that you said, man, this could be a thing that we could have over them for like hundreds of years, where we were the party that puts through a seismic change that these Republicans guys didn't do. So something makes me think that whether he said that word for word, it's something that I think that he would have done or maybe said in some sort of way. So Corey, is your mic there working? Corey
Yes,
White?
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so thoughts on this then. Do you think that he would have said this? Is this something that you think that the Democrats could have done to sort of control African Americans by passing the civil rights bill? I give you this, you give us your support for 200 years.
Absolutely. I think that's very, very possible. And if you look at it, it looks like it worked. I feel like it. I feel like you're correct. I think that plan is put in place and has controlled our vote, subsequently our minds, for a long time. Gave us this, backroom allegiance to the Democratic Party that makes us do that. Now, being raised by my grandmother, who is 80 years old, and was essentially the help herself back in the day, as a live-in. You listen to, and I was raised around a lot of people that age. You listen to them talk, and you see a very sharp shift between some of them. Say you got 4 of them, 2 of them are going to be, hardcore, trained to the Democrat system, and and their relationship to that, and then the others like sweat of your brow kind of people. My grandmother was kind of one that stood out the box and said, you need to do what you feel is right, by you and by your family and by your people and whatnot. But I still feel like that a lot of her, people around her age that I was raised around, I feel like they were, and these are our teachers, right? When I say these people, these ages, these are the ones that teach, gentlemen, around my age, which is about 40. And these are the ones that we have a lot of influence from, right, growing up. And so, assuming you're around any sort of family unit and whatnot. And so I think that, I think ultimately you're right. I think that civil rights movement bound us to the Democratic Party morally, right? And so we've just kind of got on this cycle of, oh, we're all Democrats, and it's all thought of as we're all Democrats. When in fact, LBJ did say, in my opinion, that's real. Like he said, it didn't record himself much. In my opinion, yeah, that joker said that shit, man. He's from Texas. He's a Southern Democrat. He's around that age. Nobody liked us. You had a few good white folks that fought for us and whatnot, but nobody liked us, especially Southern Democrats. They wanted to keep us, in the fields, and below them, no matter how far down the rung they were, we were still looked at as inferior, to say the least. So, yeah, I agree with you. That was.
Okay. From Real Deal, who says, thank you for the super chat. Real Deal, thank you, bro. He says, in the US, blacks think they know politics like they know the stock market. Blacks need to heal. No politician signed a bill to make you be a father or leader. So, do you see, just going on for these statements, because it's almost linked into what I just said, is that for me, I believe that psychologically, mentally, African Americans are suffering. I think this even goes to the pull that the Democrats have over African Americans. It's very psychological, and I believe that African Americans are living in this, not all of them, but a lot of African Americans are living in this psychological prison that they don't know that they're in. They don't know that they're mentally imprisoned. They just think, hey, no, we're not in slavery anymore. All that stuff is gone. But these psychological gymnastics have been used by these politicians and so forth. So how do you feel African Americans can sort of heal themselves in a sort of in a realer manner that is beyond politics? Because again, politics aren't really helping African Americans, but politics is what makes the world go round. So for Sam, is there an answer in voting and politics, or is something radically different needed for Black Americans to sort of be going forward, Sam?
I mean, the thing about it is that I don't really get this message. The point is that you have to, that in order for a society or a group of people or a race of people to basically advance, they need everything. They need to be able to be flexible and develop on both fronts, because you do need the political end, because the political end covers things such as your infrastructure, basically the things, your infrastructure, your education, your law enforcement, those things that basically build, that keep your society safe, that educate your children. I mean, so that they can go on and become prosperous, and then basically build up your society so businesses and all of that can be developed. That's really all we need from the government. We don't need anything else. I mean, as far as money, as far as all of that, that's on us as individuals. That's all that, because at the end of the day, if I'm not a leader, I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you how to raise your family. But on the other hand, if I'm a Black leader, I can try to use my influence to basically influence people and say, hey, these are values that we should look at, that we should be emphasizing stuff like family values. And that's one of the biggest issues too, that I feel that's been a one major change from like pre-civil rights Black community to post-civil rights Black community, was actually the stray away from the Black church. I know that there's a lot of people that have resentment towards Christianity, including myself, because of a lot of the nature of things that happened during the initial dark phases of it. But then again, as far as value systems, as far as morals, as far as what's worked for the Black community, because it's not always what's best, it's what works. I mean, I'm not gonna, actually, let me take that back. It's not always the, it's
no. I mean, no, that makes sense. It's not that. So even if it's not conceptually the right thing, but basically it is very similar to Nigeria. Like, I go on about my mom and people say, you know what, white people, racist white people gave you Christianity. You had a religion before Christianity. This is a white religion. And I go to the churches, and when I see a white, blonde, blue-eyed people who look nothing like you people in Nigeria right now, and you're praying to an image of whiteness that hates you, that views you as niggers, coons, and monkeys. But what I do say is that Christianity is helpful for Nigeria. It helps because it works, and it keeps and gives people proper values, and it just keeps people within society hopeful, in a positive mood, and also really gives people good morals and good ethics. So it's a tit for tat. So I think you are right in what you're saying.
I think the big balance is structure, because when it comes down to almost anything, you do need at least you need a structure in order for any society to function. And it doesn't matter how that structure is, as long as the structure works and as long as the structure leads to success in both intelligence, in gaining intelligence, and gaining capital, because without money you can't get anywhere, and being able to establish trade with others, because the thing about society of humans as a whole is that we're a social species. So even with our in groups, we still have to work with out groups. So as Black people, we have to work with white people. as Americans, we have to work with other countries and so on and so forth. And that's how, and the most successful nations are the ones that have the most allies, have the most trading partners. It's just like business. Like the most successful businessmen have the most associates and connections. It's no different from that.
Okay, so let me just hit it from Martin again. Martin Rosanna, thank you for that super chat. Thank you, bro. Who says, if you need more proof, LBJ was the one that pushed forward the Great Society, which created the welfare state, a detriment to Black people, because it destroyed the African American family that's still being felt today. So, for my American brethren, is this true?
Yeah, it's partly. So here's the deal. So it's actually because people try to throw all of that blame of like destruction of the Black community on just liberals and just the Great Society, but it's a combination of stuff because it was the Great Society combined with the war on drugs. People try to talk about one thing and then fail to talk about the other. Like the war on drugs, which by the way is 100% a left, which is 100% a right wing, which is completely a right wing conservative crackdown on pretty much society, pretty much created that vacuum that's going on in the Black community, because you have the Great Society. Provided welfare programs, which was supposed to be a hand up, not a handout. But then again, in addition to that, though, because fathers were being taken out of their houses because they were falsely being accused of drug crimes and then being thrown in jail for mandatory minimum sentences of 10 years or more. And then pretty much those combined, and then it basically created this big vacuum in the Black community, which ended up the Black community in America, which took the father out and then basically destroyed the structure and then weaponized. And it also did two things as well. Not only did it do that, but it also weaponized gangs, because gangs before that were just like a bunch of punk kids on the street. That just needed to behave themselves. Now gangs were like these really big groups that have guns and like are talking about major shipments coming out of Mexico and then killing each other. And the thing about this didn't just focus. People talk mainly about the Black community, but this affected all types of communities. This affected Hispanics, Native Americans. This affected poor whites too. But the thing is that because the cities were so massively and densely populated and filled with these housing projects, it combined to that, and the effects were much worse because of the dense population centers there.
All right, so CA or Corey, want to sort of comment on this? Do you agree with this? Okay, CA.
Yeah. I would just say before I start, I would say gangs before this were white. That was the biggest difference. The Italian and Irish mafia, or in various local mafias in the Midwest is one example. Gangs were mostly white before this, so I don't, these people like to act like I can pretend like gangs are a Black thing. Gangs are a white thing. But yeah, I mean,
a gang is. You see, that just shows you the kind of Could say a gang is a gang. Like
right.
What's it called? There's a film called Gangs of New York about from the flipping 1800s during the early times of America. So gang is just gang. So
exactly. Rock cocaine versus powder cocaine is an example I can think of that caused more jail time for Black people. Black people, statistically did rock cocaine. White people statistically did powder cocaine. Rock cocaine was cheaper. Powder cocaine was more expensive. Rock cocaine for the same amount will get you 10, 20 years. Powder cocaine for the same amount will get you 3 to 5 years. Black and white drug use is roughly the same, yet Blacks go to jail longer than whites for drug use. African American, the jails are full of African Americans. Again, drug use, same percentage between across white and Black. The three strike rule caused a lot of black men to leave the home. The use of force by the police is more on blacks than whites. Stop and frisk is more on blacks than whites. So all these things kind of contributed to the lack of fathers in the home, and that is the backbone of every society, in my opinion. That's the backbone of every society, white society, black society, whatever. And but to go back to what you were saying about how why is it so different in the Americas and stuff like that. I would say, or United States, I would say that's because the American apartheid, I would say, which is these set of laws that were in place that specifically targeted black people or specifically left out, black and other minorities, Native Americans, Mexicans, etc. That's very unique. Every country's got racism, but very few countries have these apartheid laws in place. And that's what I think makes America very unique, with maybe the exception of South Africa or anybody who knows any other countries out there that have racial apartheid, maybe Cambodia or something like that, but it makes it very unique. So it may not have been as brutal as Latin America, but the aftermath was longer lasting, I think. And this I think demoralized black people. Lack of black fathers in the home. These laws were put in place, these Jim Crow laws, these black codes, these segregation. A lot of people like to talk about slavery. Slavery, in my opinion, is ancient history. We're only one or two generations out of segregation. 2 generations at best. Corey, who was just talking about his mother. I'm sure his mother grew up in segregation.
Absolutely.
So I mean, we're just getting started, man. Mental health in the black community is finally being talked about. Thank God. It's not embarrassing anymore. It's very necessary to talk about that. I know people like to still, why are you going to see a psychiatrist, man? You don't need that. But I mean, it's very important. Black people need them. Black African Americans especially need mental health, because that will help us process what happened and help move us along.
Bring that up too.
Wait. Before, let me just hit this super chat real quick, because I want to ask you guys something. So Sean C, who says that as a white guy, I appreciate this consent plus education. Oh no, look, man, it is what it is. I mean, we are happy to serve. I want to ask you guys this, because this goes back. I think so. It was a point that I think C and I think Corey he echoed it, which is about working together. And I find that, disheartening, worrying, but I find it's true. Because here's the thing. There's now been this whole anti-Jewish, I call it anti-Jewish, I don't call it anti-Semitic, I call it anti-Jewish. There's this whole anti-Jewish thing going on about, from people in the black community or so forth. We're just asking questions. And here's my thing here. Don't point fingers at the Jews, at the Chinese, at the Koreans, or at the Irish or the Italians. Because you know what these guys do? They work together. They stick together. I probably try and look it up, because they say that the money stays within the Korean or Jewish community for a long period of time. But within the black community, the money comes in, so it goes out. Money goes in, goes out. And I think before you can even start pointing fingers at all the communities, okay, look at how we're treated by this. The funny thing is that, of course, Jewish people complain about racism. Of course, the Chinese complain about racism. Of course, the Japanese complain about racism, the Malaysians whatsoever. But they do it to an extent, because we'll do it like that. But because we have the support of our people, we have each other's backs. We are strong and resolute, and there are strength in numbers. So my thing though is that I'll come to Sam with this. Why is it? And look, I even see this as well. This is not even an American thing, because even when I was in school in the UK and everything, black people just feel a lot more individualistic, and they feel a lot more apprehensive from trusting other black people. And even I've even had situations where my brother has said he's in the entertainment industry, and he says that white people, Jewish people have actually helped him more so than black people have. And we don't really have support from black people supporting other. Black people will run and support a white person, or they will support something that has been approved by a white person first, rather than something that is completely black owned by someone that's black. So come to Sam with this then. Why is it that black people can't operate like the Jews, the Chinese, the Japanese, and so forth, and work together as a unit?
I'm gonna straight tell you one thing, which because people always bring up this whole thing like that we can't work together, but they really don't. They don't address the biggest elephant in the room. White people don't work together. Since the start of history, white people have not worked together.
No, wait. But Sam, I never mentioned white people because they don't have to. I mentioned the Jews, the Chinese, the Koreans, and so on and so forth. If you're the kings, you own everything. Everybody wants to be you. You are the image of so-called perfection and success. Why do you need to work together? Why do you need to hold in together? You can walk anywhere and you're king. You're king in Africa. A white guy can go to Africa and they're kings. Go look at South Africa. So in South Africa, the whites get treated like princes, blacks get treated like trash. So, but my thing though is those other people who aren't whites who work together. So that's where I'm going to. So that
I think part of it is that the idea that was sold to us, the American dream, was sold to us in a way where it was like, we can do exactly what white people do. And people still have that mentality in the back of their heads that they can do exactly what white people do as far as like spending money, investing in whatever they want and asking for advice from people they want. But the thing is that because we're a minority and because we're a marginalized minority, we're realized. I mean, there's also that other part in the back of our head where it's like we can't do that, and then by that time it's too late. I mean, you're already spending money outside of the community. You're like, and it's really hard too. I mean, like talking about like spending money in the community and like all of this. The first thing you have to do in order to spend money in the community is have predominantly black businesses. When you have when you live in a mostly black neighborhood, because I'm not going to say it's an all black neighborhood. There's rarely any all black neighborhoods in America. You have like the gas stations are owned by Middle Eastern people. The convenience stores are owned by Hispanics or Middle Eastern people. The gas stations are owned by Indians. The fucking like liquor store is owned by a Korean guy. Like all the chain stores that are there are owned by white people. I mean, even at the CEO level. And you maybe have the barber shop, and then like the only black owned businesses there is the barber shop and the fried chicken stand down the street. And even that may not even be owned by a black person. That may be owned by somebody else. But that's really the thing. You got that. And there's also issues as well with black people who actually have money and are starting businesses. And then on top of that, any black person who makes money is basically told that there's an impetus on you that you have to invest in the community that you're from. I think that's one of the biggest things that I see. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, you always have to spend back on your community. And it's more of like and they really deliver that in a way where it's like, I told you so. I mean, you have to, you better, you must, rather than making it enticing. And I feel like there's a lot of vinegar when it comes to things like that, where it's like, okay, you must invest because you're a child of us, you're a child of this group, you're part of this family, but sometimes you don't get treated like you're part of the family. If you have, whether you have a dissenting idea or something like that. But I'm done.
So to me, that's a. Oh, sorry.
So Corey, you wanted to go?
Yeah. So I kind of agree with what he was saying as far as talking about some black folks with some money and how we tend to make them feel inside the culture. Let's kind of separate ourselves as a community away from everybody. And how do we function, right? How do we function? How do we get to this goal? Ownership. We do have to have financial resources within our own community. We do need to own the hotels, the infrastructure, just to kind of cover it up in one word. We need to have more ownership in our own infrastructures and then build out from there, right? We just can't go and start Wakanda in the middle of the desert. It ain't going to work that way. You know, we got to start in communities like DeSoto, Texas, just south of here. You know, it's been listed on one of the Black Excellence on the Black Excellence channel as one of the top 10 areas for Black businessmen, Black singles, just Black activity in general. And I see a lot of people flocking to there, to DeSoto, Texas, which is just south of Dallas by a few 10 or so miles. And other, you know, predominantly Black communities. If we could appeal to some of the people in those communities, those of us without, you know, without that kind of money, but with the great ideas and things like that, maybe we should go to some of these more affluent, you know, Black Americans and things like that, and have our shit together. You know, we got to have a plan. You know, we can't just walk in there and be like, hey, you know, we need y'all to do some shit for us because you got some money. You can't do that. You got to come with them folks, you know, with a proper plan too. But I think that's possible. I think if we could get, you know, some of our, you know, and who are our Black leaders, you know, a lot of us, not me, but a lot of us didn't know people like John Lewis, but, you know, the fellow that recently passed for all his work, a lot of people didn't know about him until recent. But, you know, we need to go to our local nobody, you know, not famous Black people, but rich Black people, you know, and appeal to them in their sense to do for their own people and being a part of something that's much larger than them. In other words, you know, can somehow convince these brothers and sisters to invest in their communities, immediate communities right around them, you know, not go from Texas and go invest in some shit in Atlanta. That's cool, but you didn't build up Texas. So, you know, you got to do something here. You know, you need to start here to show example to be able to spread. So, you know, going to those people and appealing to them is one way to start to build that infrastructure. You know, take for example, the group that's, I can't think of the name of them, but along Route 66, the famous, you know, driving route or what have you, there were a lot of sites and hotels and that thing that were for Black people. You know, you could find them in places like the Green Books, you know, the various Green Books, you would find these places. That would be a great place to start, is to go and revive, because that, if you look at that, that was those places, those locations were a part of the American infrastructure, but they were, you know, bombed out and depleted. They didn't get enough support, you know, what have you. You could start there, for example, and say you got, you know, a group of brothers and sisters, you know, from the rich nobodies down here to the Tyler Perrys up there, and say, hey guys, let's put together and let's buy all this shit back. You know, let's go buy it in the hotels and the restaurants and the stops. And now you can put something together and say, this is an entity, right? And so now I don't know what you call it, the green route, the Green Book route, I don't know what the hell you call it, but now it becomes a business. And now that is a source of income and revenue as well to put back out and spread through this group of Black investors for them to go back to their own communities and do even more than what they could have done with the money that they've already made, right? So, you know, I work for a Black-owned company, a solar. We are a electrical and solar company. The fellow that owns is a Black man, and you know, I talked to him about doing, you know, little stuff like that, and, you know, promoting more, even though he's married to a white woman, you know, promoting more in the Black-owned businesses and circles and things like that, just to get his name recognized. You never know who you meet, you know, via networking and whatnot. So I feel like, you know, if we have more ownership, and then we can go and we got to attack a bunch of things: ownership, education, you know, finances and stuff. Like, we got to attack all that stuff at once. We are too far behind in dealing with the unfinished business from the civil rights movement to pour all of our attention on one thing. We have to have committees to work on different issues that affect our community. We can't just say, everybody on this stream, we're going to focus on equality or whatever. Well, what about equity? You know, equality and equity, you know, kind of go hand in hand these days. So we all know money talks and bullshit runs the marathon. Because without no money, we're just a bunch of loudmouth Negroes. You dig what I'm saying? So we got to be able to get out there. You know what I'm saying? We got to be able to get out there and speak to our own. But to the gentleman's point before me, we got to be heard too. But we also can't come to them brothers and sisters with our hands out. Again, because you never know who you're going to run into. Even if they're Democrats or Republicans, the niggas got some money. You know what I'm saying? They ain't gonna fool with us because we broke. Our ideas are just that. We were just some emotional Negroes sitting at the house, you know, talking to each other on a Zoom call. Shit. You know, if we don't have a plan going to them brothers and sisters with some money, we ain't gonna get nowhere. Now, what happens when we've done that in the past is that we've called them when we don't get what we want out of our people, we tend to call them coons or Sambos. They ain't trying to help. You ain't Black. You know, we start immediately attack them on some very core shit, man, and it really turns them off. If somebody come call me a coon and some shit just because I live up in the suburb, I'm gonna have something to say about that. You know, and I would think that I'm gonna give them brothers and sisters the same respect. Hey man, you can't come at me like that and you want something from me. You know, you got to come correct. Where your plan at? What's your course of action? What's your business model? What you talking about? You can't just come in here with your emotions all full of piss and vinegar. I'm not giving you a damn dollar. That's how I would look at that if I was the brother with the money. You know, I'm down with the cause. I'm down for building up, but you know, how are we gonna do it? You know, you brought this idea to me. How are we gonna do it? So that goes right back to my point about having, you know, a plan to go to these folks and say, you know, you who have taken advantage of your opportunities and things like that, or you who have made something of yourself, self-made, or whatever it was, you know, how can I work with you, you know, to further our cause as a people? You know what I'm saying? I mean, in education, you know,
Wait, let us bring in some other guys because we're just
Sorry,
going to get some other guys to talk. So CA, very briefly with regards to blacks working together.
I would say the reason why we can, in a lot of cases, not all the cases, but a lot of cases, is because of colonialism, man. The effects of colonialism, in my opinion. You know, it really didn't end until recently. You know, we need a little bit of time to get rid of that mentality. The solution is time, I believe. And I believe it's really that simple. And this is not just an African American thing. Colonialism has touched everything.
How long?
I mean, well, you know, African Americans, I would say, you know, 2-3 generations out of segregation. You know, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think if you look at the exponential growth of African American communities since the end of segregation, in comparison to Irish and Italians who have been free, I would say, to do what the fuck they wanted since the beginning, since they first came in the middle of the 19th century, is staggering. You know, we are growing very fast, and I think it'll be okay. Just need more time. I mean, you know, when you talk about black businesses or land in the South, which by the way used to be 25% owned by black people, you know, that aren't anymore. I believe that's the result of integration. I believe a lot of the issues that we have is a result of integration. People who got successful and moved away from the neighborhood or the city or the county or whatever. You know, I think Killer Mike talked about that in a Breakfast Club interview, right? You know, integration was a blessing and a curse for the black people, African Americans. And that's all I have to say about that.
Yep.
Sure.
MB?
What's up?
So, in terms of, do you see black people working together? Now, why do you think there's a difficulty of black people sort of originating and really working and supporting each other and holding each other's backs as a unit?
Crabs in a barrel, man. I feel like a lot of it, to the point CA made, is a lot of it has roots in colonialism. I think we were having this discussion in a separate group regarding like Black Wall Street. And ultimately what really killed Black Wall Street being the fact that as soon as black folks could spend their money amongst white folks, they ran and did that versus spending their money with their own. And I think a lot of the feed them, don't feed us mentality it has roots in how we were conditioned to break us from our, like, so I think part of it comes from the fact that we were treated in such a way as to break the bonds between us so that we couldn't fight back. But as we got, you know, we're past that at this point, right? Like, we're at the point where we know that there's a problem and the fact that we don't act is on us. I think a lot of it at this point is just, you have folks like, I keep thinking about when Oprah said, when she got criticized for building schools in Africa and not Chicago, and she said, black people here wouldn't appreciate it. I feel like that mentality's out there too. I feel like we're conditioned to not think very much of ourselves as a people. We're conditioned to, and this is not because of slavery. This is not necessarily because of racism or colonialism. It's just at this point in our timeline, we have a mentality where black folks even internally think less of ourselves, right? And to the point of, why would I invest in this? This brother's probably not, his business probably isn't going to go anywhere. I could invest in this white man's business. But to the point you made earlier, not every, but major ethnic groups invest in and keep their money within their own community. That's why they prosper. Black folks don't do that. I think it's just the way that we're, honestly feel like it's our culture. It's just the way that we're raised. We're raised to take care of number one in many respects. Look out for number one. Don't take a risk. Be safe. Like, I'm the product of 2 city workers, right? I was raised to get that job that's a 9 to 5. Better get you some benefits. Never be an entrepreneur. Never invest money in stuff. Never take a risk, right? Never squirrel money away and then buy a business that's already doing okay, like a gas station or something. That never came up as I was growing up. I don't know many people in my community where I grew up that were thinking that way. It was all get a government job, get a city job, and take care of your family. That was the thinking. So I think part of it is just, it's a cultural thing at this point with many causes, many roots. But I just think that we're programmed at this point to not take risks, not really think highly of each other, and kind of just to play it safe and survive. Like, we're in like freaking survival mode versus we're built to, what is it? We're taught to survive, not to thrive. Yeah, we're taught to survive, not to thrive. And that's the problem, right? Oh, America's after you. Oh, the man's after you. Play it safe. Get that good job. Take care of your family. Never maybe put 20, 30 grand away and buy into this business that's going. That's the problem for me. And it's not every black person. I'm just saying that's what, in my experience, that's what I've seen.
Okay. Ray.
Howdy.
Yo.
So this is just from personal experience. So I guess I would be in the category of someone that is approached. I guess I would be in the category of someone that, quote unquote, has the money, comes from the neighborhood. And so what I personally have engaged, and other African Americans like me, when we talk, we find there's actually a low level of respect for us as human beings from our own people. Normally what I engage is someone who doesn't know how to make money, who's never made money. They have nothing. But they found out that I did figure out how to make money. So they have decided that they have a good idea of what I should do with my money. They're not talking to me. They're not talking with me. They talk at me. Keep in mind, again, half the time they're my age or older. They have been on this planet so long, all this wisdom and all this experience, they can't put together $20, but they know what I should do with $20,000. And naturally that answer is always give it to them. Not only do they know that I should give them the money, they also know the interest rate I should accept from them. And I also know how well it's going to work out, even though they've never had a successful business. Now, when I try to have a conversation with them, that's when I become a sellout. That's when I become not trying to take care of my community. That's when it becomes about me preferring to work with a white man rather than a black man, instead of the reality of I like doing what makes sense. If you have no experience doing a thing, but you are not even aware you have no experience, I would be a fool to work with you. If you have never in your life driven a race car, but you're about to jump in there, I would be a fool to get in there with you. If you have never boxed in your life, but you're about to get in the ring with the next Mike Tyson, whoever that is, or actually I hear Mike Tyson's back now, so let me use his name. You're about to get in the ring with Mike Tyson because you think he's old. I would be an idiot betting everything on you, a complete idiot. So that is the first thing I see, a lack of respect for people that have done a thing to where we don't want to hear what they got to say. We don't care about them as humans. We just want their money. Now, if someone gives you their money simply because you want it, you deserve each other. They don't deserve to keep their money, and you deserve the experience you're going to get burning someone else's cash. But I did not get to where I'm at just having random people walk up to me in the streets, white or black, and say, give me money. Now, I'll go further and say what I found was for every black person that wanted me to give them money for no good reason, I got 2 white people that want me to give them money for no good reason. I remember this one guy, he'd been in the construction trades for 30 years, swinging a hammer. He wanted me to give him $75,000 loan for him to flip a house. And he's talking to me and he says, the reason why I want you to give me this money is because there was a 25-year-old kid who did the same exact thing. And this kid made so much money. So I asked him this question. You've been in the trades for 30 years, right? He's like, yeah. I go, the kid, how many years was he in the trades? He said, oh, the kid, he's never swung a hammer a day in his life. So I asked, if the kid was able to make money flipping houses and he knew nothing about construction, why do you think 30 years in the construction trade translates to you knowing how to flip a house? He had nothing. He never took the time to investigate what it actually takes to flip houses. He just woke up one day and decided that because he can fry a donut, he can run a donut shop. This is what a lot of people hit me with. You go in deeper to the community of, okay, you should help by moving out. Or not moving out, I'm sorry. Why did you leave the neighborhood? You know, everyone keeps talking about what all the other ethnicities did. I'll tell you some of the other ethnicities did. They stratified. When the Irish and the Italians first came here, they were treated the way they were treated, and they had to all stay in the ghetto. But eventually, they became doctors and lawyers and such, and businessmen, bankers. You know what they were allowed to do? Leave the ghetto. The people who wanted to leave were allowed to leave. Now, what was different with African Americans is even if you were a doctor, a lawyer, or a banker, you were not allowed to leave. So what happened was we were not allowed to do what everyone else did, which is stratify. Well, those chains have been taken off now. And now people try to convince me that if I don't keep so even though I'm in the top 1% of income earners, if I don't live on the worst street, on the worst part of town, then I'm a sellout. If I don't let my kids go to the worst school around just to prove that I'm down, if I don't put my children in that danger, then I am the problem. I see a lot here where, and I don't see this just in the Black community. I see this just as I only know America really. So this is a national epidemic where men that have never done a thing don't hesitate to preach about a thing to men who have. A guy that ain't never made money in his life will talk himself blue telling me about money. A guy that ain't never done a day of combat will come at guys like me and Sam about combat. And this is acceptable. This is acceptable for a man to stand up and say, I ain't got no money, but here's what Bill Gates should do with his money. And that's acceptable. That's called manhood. That's what passes for adulthood today. That you have lived your life. You ain't done jack shit, but you're going to preach. So at what point can we come together? I would argue it starts here. I'm not saying don't knock on my door to talk about a business plan. I'm always looking. But maybe you come in with a different attitude. Maybe you come in with an attitude of, hey, I know I don't know jack about accumulating cash, but you do. But I think I got an idea. I'd like to run it by you. That person, I will answer my phone every single time. But that person who is lacking awareness, and that's really what it's about. I don't know nothing about nothing, but I'm going to talk like I do, bro. My phone's always going to be too busy for you. So if we're truly about community and building up and connecting, why don't we just start small and nobody talk about things or talk as if they're experts in things they have not done, and then see where we go from there.
Okay, let me just hit the super chats before I forget. So from your boy Martin Rosero, thank you for the super chats. Puts Planned Parenthood there as, so I think he's referring to LBJ Lyndon Johnson, who puts Planned Parenthood there as well as a detriment to blacks, founded by a racist and killing hundreds of thousands yearly, clinics in every hood. So Ray, this was obviously before you came. So, and I think Ray, I'm sorry, this was before Ray and MB came. So I'll come to Ray first with this, then to MB. So do you believe that, because we're talking about the Democrats and how the Democrats have this hold over African Americans. And Martin was just sort of telling us that Lyndon Johnson pretty much had a ploy that after passing the Civil Rights Bill, he said apparently he said that I will have these niggers in voting for the Democrats for the next 200 years. So do you feel that Lyndon Johnson was instrumental in the detriments of African Americans? I'm going to confess to Ray, then to MB.
I got to examine the man in context of other presidents. So no. I think I see the narrative there, and I think I heard it mentioned earlier that one of the worst things that happened to the Black people was integration. I think this is along that same mentality of, because we got a little bit of something, we're just so low and we're just so ignorant and so stupid that we got hopped up on welfare checks and we'll never think for ourselves. While this is popular both within and outside the Black community, when I am face to face with my people, that's not what I'm coming across. Now, again, coming back to that word stratify, am I seeing World Star videos of people holding up their cash after they cash their welfare check? Yeah, but that's them. That is not Black people. The same way you can find some videos of some white people chugging moonshine and lighting their farts on fire. I equate that the same. I don't say that's white people, and white people wouldn't accept me naming them to represent all white people. So I don't accept that the worst of people who happen to look like me represent me. So coming back to Lyndon, especially with the abortion question, I'm gonna try to leave my religion out of this because I am a Christian. I'll just focus on the stats. The Black population rate, we have a positive growth rate. It's the whites who have a steady, neutral, and in some areas negative rate of population growth. So if Planned Parenthood is killing anybody, it's killing white folks. While we have the highest, while we have a high abortion rate percentage-wise, raw count, it's mostly white babies being aborted. The average woman doing an abortion is a 35-year-old to 45-year-old woman. So white woman, let me be specific, a 35 to 45-year-old white woman who, pathology suggests that she's like, you know what, I'm Miss Independent. So while we may have a large percentage of abortions, we're still growing. We're not growing as fast as Latins, but we are growing. So if that was a tactic to get rid of Black people, the numbers aren't showing that it's working. Now, I will say this. When a Black male or female does interracial marriage, they usually end up having the number of children as if both were white. So what does that mean? Black couples on average have more children. White people on average have fewer children. If a Black person and a white person get together, or a Black person and an Asian person, they end up having the same number of children on average or same number of children on average as if there was no Black person. Now, a lot of people disagree on what this means. I think it has something to do with wealth. As people get wealthier, they have fewer children on average. It's, again, someone said it before, I'm not speaking for everybody, but usually the more money a family has, usually the fewer children they have. So usually when minorities are marrying, it just seems to have a correlation to a higher level of wealth. Now, again, we all know that there's a poor interracial couple, so it's not speaking for everybody, but the trending is showing that the Black middle class is growing, not as much as anyone would probably like it to, but the Black middle class is growing and it is getting stronger, and it's actually outpacing income-wise the rural white family. So I don't know how you want to count it. Money, kids. I guess you could decide what you care about.
MB?
I'm actually more concerned with the infant mortality rate in the Black community. Like, I'm talking deaths for like no reason, more so than I am about Planned Parenthood. I'd rather Planned Parenthood be in a Black community, so children can get, not children, but kids are having sex so early these days, but so that, you know, people can get condoms, women can get birth control screenings, you know, for cancer, such things like that, just general health screenings. I'd rather it be around for those purposes, and then we look into the role that implicit bias has in the deaths of otherwise perfectly healthy women and their babies. Than that, I will say also though that yeah, there are records of LBJ saying some wild shit, but you know, was it crazy for the time that he was saying it in? No, not really. He was just real about it. Everyone else pretended that, oh no, we don't say that kind of thing. He didn't. There are records of him saying these things. The quote that you actually used, though, there is no direct record of him saying exactly that. But it does come back that he may have said something kind of like that, but it's not a direct quote. You know, he did say, though, that if you convince the poorest white man that he's better than the, you know, best black man, you know, he'll give you his money. You won't have to take it; he'll just give it to you. But he did say that. He is quoted as saying that. But I will say again, no, I don't think Planned Parenthood was some kind of conspiracy. I think that what you should be worried about is the liquor stores and things of that nature that are on damn near every corner in some communities. Worry about that kind of thing first, not some grand scheme to kill black people on a systemic level like that. That's because that legitimately just like you know, Ray said, that's not happening by the numbers. Or at least it doesn't appear to be happening.
Okay, so now I want to shift things over to interracial dating. Interracial dating. So let me just tell you where I come from with this, and then I want to see your guys' view. So again, as most of you guys know, I'm Nigerian. You know, I grew up in Nigeria first, then spent a few years in Geneva, Switzerland. Then I moved over to England, London. And this is how I've always viewed it. You know, initially, and even someone sort of now and so forth, when I sort of, you know, got through my, you know, went experienced sort of racism in school and so forth and everything, and realized that, because again, when you're living in Nigeria, there's no racism because everyone is black. Only when I left Nigeria, then I was, oh, I'm this thing called this a black guy. Okay, all right, I get it. Okay, cool. So once I had that, and then I became a lot more conscious and so forth, zero tolerance towards racism and everything. You see, I always felt slightly guilty whenever I went out with women who weren't black. You know, I always felt that, okay, wait, am I sort of betraying the race? Am I sort of a sellout? Is this the wrong thing to do and so forth? Because I've always been a thing of like, if I vibe with you, I vibe with you. It's never like a racial thing. But if, let's say, I'm with somebody who isn't black, specifically if somebody is white, I always have this chip in my head that says, am I a sellout for doing this and so forth? I'm like, is this and that? But then I remember when I was in university, so there was this lady in a university, French lady, you know, and she was obviously much older than us. So she was just coming to uni because obviously she didn't do it earlier on. So she was like in her 40s. And she was just telling us the story. She said to us that, and basically she had a kid. She had a few kids with this Jamaican guy, black guy. So she's like French white. And she told us about her daughter. And then she said that her daughter would have her hair a certain way when she was with her white friends, and then change her hair a certain way when she was with her black friends. She was almost living in these two different kinds of worlds. And I remember that saying to myself that, for me, I'll speak for myself. I'm not speaking for everyone. I wouldn't know how to bring up a mixed race child. I wouldn't know. I am not saying mixed race people are awful, you halflings, you strange. I'm not saying that. Okay, we're very good friends about I'm mixed race. But for me, I've always said that I will go out with anyone. Racially, I'll go out with anyone. I'll always feel a bit iffy if I'm with somebody who's white, especially when I'm in public. I feel like, oh God, like who's watching me? I do know what I sometimes do. I have to catch myself doing this. Whenever I walk down the street and I see a black guy with like a white woman, or I sort of stare, and the black guy will look at me, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, because it's always this kind of weird that happens. But I'm gonna stop myself doing that, but I don't know why I keep doing that. But I've always said to myself that, like, if it's me, for me, I want my kids to be black. So when if I'm with a girlfriend or someone, I'll mess around with anyone. But if I was to have kids, she has to be black. Primarily Nigerian, but has to be black, and I would rather have black kids specifically. So dealing with many different things, let's deal with the first thing. Thoughts on interracial dating. So for Sam, what are your thoughts on dating interracially? Is it something that you have no dealings with? You date anyone, it doesn't matter what race they are, or are you very conscious of that, Sam?
I don't have a lot of qualms with it. And this is from somebody who has been in a lot of interracial relationships. One of the big things I would say, though, is that this is very, very important to me. And especially when you're talking about like getting serious and doing things like talking about marriage and long-term relationships, is that regardless of the race of the person, they have to be able to at least share most of your values and understand your values and what you stand for, and understand your culture and what you stand for. Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to. Because if you have somebody who they don't respect you, their family doesn't respect you, then there's going to be problems. Yeah. And honestly, the whole thing with people saying like that, I'm seeing comments on here, people saying there should be laws against that ban same race marriages, or that actually what? I'm looking at two of the comments here. One of them looks crazy, but the other one is like you shouldn't mix races. But I've seen comments on both in all honesty. Like I've seen ones where people talk about like every race should mix, but every race should mix to end racism. And then I've seen other ones where it's like, I've seen a lot more where it's like, oh, you shouldn't mix races. And at the same time, both logics, in my opinion, are dumb. People should have the freedom to do what they want. We're in a free society. People should, if you want to marry like white woman, black woman, Hispanic woman, Asian woman, whatever, you should have the right to do that. But then again, at the end of the day, morally, I think the best way to do is to marry somebody that matches your values.
Okay. Corey, thoughts on this then?
Shit, I got a white girl coming over tomorrow. Shit. That's what I got to say about that. Nah, but square biz though. I agree with the brother that said before me. I think ultimately, I also agree with you too, Mr. DJ there. I too I come from hell, my last name is White, right? So I come from a very mixed family with a lot of black males, obviously that have kids. In fact, out of my grandmother's 5 children, my mother's the only one that has. Nope, let me take that back. My other uncle that has kids that are black on both sides. The rest of them are all mixed, biracial, whatever you want to call them. I personally, at the end of the day, I don't have an issue with that. I'm like you. It took me a while to kind of tussle that. Am I doing something wrong? Am I, literally killing off my bloodline? Am I killing off my melanin? And the answer to that question, I don't think scientifically is no. I think that if I'm correct, I think that when we do mix, we've got a very strong gene, and science says that whatever you mix us with, you now become black. And certainly that's the box that you're going to check on your ACT or application. You will check that as a black person unless they have the biracial there, at which point you're probably still going to check, or identify as black. Now, that said, I have a cousin who is my uncle's son, obviously a black man, black on both sides, and his mother is white on both sides, but he identifies more so culturally with his white side in terms of music, dress, talk, and all that kind of stuff. And I say, hey, that's fine. I give him a little shit about it, but I say, that's you, man. I can't tell you what to do. All I can do is influence you as a black man, but I'm not going to sit up here and tell you what side you need to identify with, because you are literally half and half. you know. So ultimately, like the brother said, I think that, love has no colors on it, and you can't help who you fall in love with, I think. But at the same time, I think that as long as it's pink on the inside, don't have any heebie-jeebies in there. I don't give a damn if she purple. As long as she got a fat ass to treat me right, I'm good.
All right, okay. MB, what about you? What's thoughts on this?
I'm enjoying the gentleman or lady who said Brazil is proof a multicultural society solves jack shit. I mean, that would be true if colonialism hadn't fucked Brazil up. I mean, you can tell a lot about a society based on looking on their news channel, right? You tune into news in South America in general. Most of the reporters look like Europeans. That's not by accident. But and anyway, interracial dating, man, I look forward to the day where everyone is tan, and that's
It's coming.
It
Obviously,
is coming. If you look at most kids down here,
it will happen.
Yeah, no, most kids I'm seeing down here now, have some kind of mixed blood, and that's awesome. That's peace and love. Because, me personally, I'm with Corey. I don't care what skin color she is, what ethnicity, what anything. As long as she treats me right, she's intelligent, and she has a plan for life, and is not just like floating through life. Old boy over there talking about you shouldn't date someone outside your race. You're not helping your community.
I'm saving that comment. We'll get there. I'm going to save that comment because I want us to all respond to that.
Yeah, because I'm willing to bet he ain't helping shit. But anyway, I will say, I'm just being real. I'm sensing a 500 credit score. But anyway, my point is, my point is just, it's always to Brother Ray's point. It's always the dudes who talk the most shit who do the least. Bro probably has multiple kids from multiple women or some other ignorant shit like that, and is telling me that I can't have a loving, beautiful relationship with the same woman, have all my kids be from the same woman, and have a respectful relationship. Now, I'm not gonna lie, my shorty's family doesn't necessarily like black folks. That's not because of anything beyond the fact that her family owns gas stations, right? Ray's gonna laugh at this shit. I know he is. Her family owns gas stations, right? They happen to own them in the hood. Who do you think is knocking them over, right? It's just kind of like a lot of cops, right? You can only be in the shit for so long before you start to think everybody of a certain group is a certain way.
Hold on, white people own gas stations?
She's not white, bro.
Oh, okay. I was about to say that's probably who knocking them over. If a white person owns a gas station,
but that was
they're
my
in Indian
point.
territory.
Nah, but that was my point to her. I was like, she's like, my grandpa doesn't really like black folks, so this is going to be some real shit when I bring home. And I was like, well, yeah, but think about it. Where did you have that gas station? What neighborhood? It was predominantly what? She was like, black. I was like, okay. And the same shit would have happened if they were in a low income, predominantly white hood, except the people would have been white knocking it over. They'd have been meth heads or whatever. And she gets that because she's Americanized and she's of this generation. But it's a lot of the older folks. The good news is the old folks who feel, a lot of old folks who feel that way are dying. They're dying off. The bad news is a lot of that venom has been passed on. So I'm just gonna say, like, you should not care as long as she's not a bum bitch. If she's a bum bitch, bro, you got bigger problems. If you're doing your thing as a man, you're taking care of your responsibilities, you're taking care of your children, you're putting food on the table, you're stacking paper for your children, you're teaching them how to stack paper, and your wife has your back or your shorty has your back, what else matters? Real talk, what else matters?
All right, Ray.
Yeah, I guess just double touching on a lot of things he said. It's really like the money. A guy that ain't got no money talking to me about my money. A guy that ain't got no woman talking to me about my woman. So it's really the same thing, big picture, because the idea is, so I've had a lot of transition in life. So I got married very early, and I married a white woman. But I will say this now, where I am in life, I would not marry a white woman again. And not just because.
Expand on that. That's interesting.
I'm
Yeah.
digging into it. So when I was younger, you know how we talk about know yourself and your values and your culture and all that. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't sit around thinking about that. I didn't care. I was just like every other 20-year-old guy, women are women, you know? So, because what a lot of guys don't realize is you can't be sitting there talking that black women are my queen when you burning through 3 of them every week. That's not how you treat queens. So I was just as ignorant as they were. So I wasn't thinking these things out. So when I got married, my attitude was it's okay. No one matters but us. It's okay if her family doesn't respect me, which they didn't. I now would not engage in a similar relationship because my attitude is this: if you don't have enough courage and conviction to make your family respect me, or you cut them off, why am I with you? I'm a lot more hardline on this. So when I was younger, I would date white girls, and I always remember that moment right before we pull up in the car. She'd stop, take a breath, and go, I just want you to know they're good people. Okay, no matter what happens, you know, my cousin Randy, he gets a little worked up. He says stupid things. Basically, what it was saying is, I'm letting you know right ahead town right now, my family is racist as hell, and I am going to allow it. I didn't see it that way then. I just saw it as, you know, I just have to prove that I'm not like the other trash dudes. Now I'm kind of like, nah, however your family treats me when we walk in here, that's you. That's 100% you. So I now am married, but even when I was dating, you know, when I started dating after my first marriage, that was my new attitude of, it's not about black or white. It's about yes or no. Do you respect me to a point to make your people respect me? Because if your people won't respect me on the front side, they're not going to respect me on the middle and the end. So I'm now married to an Ecuadorian woman, Latin. And coming back to that guy who's talking about, oh, you're not doing enough for your community, I can say for a fact, she's got the bank statements. My Ecuadorian woman has done more for the community than 98% of the cats that talk that way. And that includes that Dr. Umar cat. So I got to look at walk your life path, do what you do, because most of the cats talking, that's all they're doing is just talking.
Okay, so just sort of final question here, just to run us, just to take us to the 2-hour mark. Then, I want to just to sort of bring this up because I just thought this was a wild statement. So, say, if you date outside your race as a black person, you are not helping your community. So, this is okay. So, okay, again, this is my okay. I don't even know how to begin. So, this is just my response to that. First of all, I think that statement is quite extreme, but I do get where he's coming from there, but I still think it is extreme. Now, you can still help your community if you're married to somebody that is non-black. You can still put money into your community, fund projects, give money back, build schools, do all these things. A non-black wife doesn't stop you or negate you from doing these things, especially if, just bumping off race points, if this non-black wife you spoke to is also as pro-black as you are, cares much about black issues as you are, as is their family, and so forth. But the thing though is this is what I've always said, is that, you know, if a black guy is talking to me about, you know, race, black women supposed to be by base, you know, love the black woman and everything, and you're married to like a white woman, I'm like, okay, something here is not really computing here, really. And my thing is, I've always found it difficult that because I'm living in life where, okay, look, man, it is what it is. Racism exists. It does exist, and you have to choose who you are. I don't know how I can live in this world getting a white woman to really understand racism. Because the kind of discussions I can have with a black woman, I know I can't have it with a white woman. They can think they understand. They'll never understand. They'll never understand.
Just real quick, I just want to say the other part that we keep leaving out when we say that, you can be with a black woman all the time and be complete, utter trash. We keep talking about how you can be with a non-black woman and contribute. you can also be with a black woman and be worthless to this world. So let's speak both sides. And by the way, let's speak the population sizes of each of these groups. There's a lot of trash black dudes who, again, are with black women, ain't contributing nothing other than words.
So it was, I think this might even be towards you, and everyone can respond to this. Black women are, and I don't know, again, I need to do a fact check on this. I'll do a fact check on this.
No, she's right. I actually responded that in there. He's right, just so you know.
Oh, so just for everyone to know, just for guys watching the video, bottom of zero, I think it's super chat. Black women are 5 times more likely to have abortions than white women. People strategically put 79% of their facilities in Black Hispanic communities.
That's correct. So first off, 5 times more likely. What's being left out of that math, though, is we're 13% of the population. 60% of all abortions still are white women. That's the point I made. Those two statements don't conflict. So you can be the smaller group, but still be more likely because you're so much smaller. Okay. So the other part there, now directly, is there a direct master plan to put it in the Black and Hispanic neighborhoods? I would short answer say no, but larger say yes. The same reason why your social services buildings are on that side of town. The less desirable buildings are put into the less desirable side of town. So you get the liquor stores, you get the jails, you get the abortion clinics. Even though white people are visiting them too, they don't want to look at them when they walk down their neighborhood. So that is also not an incorrect statement that where they're being put. They're easier for us to get to than say, how about the ballot box? You could probably get to abortion clinics easier in some cities than you can a ballot box for minorities. So those are true statements. I just think how far you reach for what it causes and what it means, that's where we probably might get into some gray areas.
So just quick question, just for everyone in here. Which one of you have mixed race kids?
I do.
Okay.
Working on it.
Keep pushing. Okay, so for Ray then, so what's the ethnicity then? So it's half black, half.
So remember, this is my second marriage. So my first wife, half white, half black. Second half Ecuadorian, half Latin, half black.
So I specifically want to talk about the half white, half black. So
okay.
How many of you have?
2 boys.
2 boys. So again, this just fascinates me. So first thing, what do they see themselves as? Do they see themselves as mixed race, or do they see themselves as black?
They see them, well, this is me answering, okay? I think they see themselves as white. I think they see themselves as white. And the reason why I think
white.
Yes. Their age right now is 12 and 13. Let's just say they did not grow up rough, okay? And I did that on purpose. I swore that, my kids would. There's certain streets in Chicago where my family has had probably 2 or 3 people die in those streets. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I said my kids would never know those streets existed. My family don't own nothing on those streets except the blood in the sidewalk. So when people be talking about you got to rep this, we don't own it. Some white man does it. You talking to the wrong person. So my kids don't know this stuff. So they grew up in suburbs away from the big city. So I think what that ends up happening is you end up engaging most of the people you're around. So when they first started out very young and they would draw pictures of themselves, when the kids are playing with the crayons, they and their mother would all be the same color and I would be a different color. So, because kids are honest. They're honest, So you're like, who's that? They're like, oh, that's you. And so that's when you start realizing that no matter how equipped you think you are, you're not equipped for these kinds of conversations. And then you got to realize that I am a black man, so I bring in, I don't want no stereotypes or racism hitting my kids, but there was a point where I had to realize I was bringing stereotypes and racism. Like put it this way, the little white girl across the street would be like, hey, can your boys come out and play? I'd be like, hell no. And I'd slam the door in her face. Like, you ain't catching my boys. So there was a dude for real, like really cool white dude. Me and him had beers. We drank together. I had to go back years later and apologize to him because I would never let my sons play with his daughter because I had that stigma of if something goes wrong, it's going to be my boys, you know? So I had to realize that some of it was me. But as they are coming up now, 12 and 13, well, here's another one. Let's just say when I ask them, what do you want? I'll buy you whatever you want. And they're like, we want skateboards. I'm like, what the hell? So they're like, I go to the store. I'm confused as hell. We're buying skateboards and Vans shoes and everything. It's like these boys are from California or something. So you realize that you kind of have to let them be their own people. So I really just focused on them knowing American history and their family's history. So instead of trying to tell them you got to dress a certain way or talk a certain way, I focused on you're going to know where you come from, but you get to decide where you go. Does that help any?
Yeah, no. And my thing though is that, see, this is my prediction. Hopefully, if we're still in contact in about 6, 7, 10 years, this is my prediction. My prediction is because 12, 13. So in 10 years, there will be after 18, 19, 20. I believe that they will change their outlook as to how they see themselves. 12, 13, you're not really out there. That's really at the cusp of really knowing what's going on. Really, it's 15, 16 that your kind of character sort of goes through. So I do feel that they will know. Even if things are advancing and we're now living in a society where people are now a lot more conscious, I still feel that it's still a very racial society. And I think that by 20, now I may be wrong, but I do feel like if once they get to 19, 20, 21, their view and their outlook will change. That's my prediction.
And I look at it like with the race, it's really no different than like I'm a musician. I've been playing since I was a kid, but I know guys who tried to force their kids to become musicians because they were musicians. Those kids hate playing music. They don't play jack. Then there's guys that their kids are adults and they still play with them. And I was jealous as hell of that. So I asked these guys, like, man, your kids are grown and they're still playing with you. Like, how did you do that? And all of them had an overlapping thing. They didn't force it on their kids. It was just accessible. Their kids grew up watching their parents play music with the other adults. It was just part of life, but it was always a choice. So I want my kids to play music, so I let them have access to it. But no, I'm not going to force them to practice 8 hours a day. And then as soon as they grow up, they never see me again. They never go. You push them away. So I really focus on providing access to my children rather than trying to tell them how to live, even down to politics. One time, one of my boys, because me and his mom had split by then. So that's really hard because the kids are getting this one thing from one side of the family and then another from another side. So one day, one of my boys, he just said out of the blue, keep in mind, he's like 9 or 10 years old. He's like, yeah, we're voting for Hillary. Just think about it. He's 10 years old. He's like, we're voting for Hillary. We hate Trump. And I go, why do you hate Trump? And he had nothing. So even though we do hate Trump, I didn't let that slide with my kid. But you see what I'm saying? I don't want him parroting things just as I parroted. That's what's the problem with this country right now. But that conversation for him at that point was, nah, man, don't just be parroting stuff. If you don't know why you're saying it, you probably shouldn't be saying it. You don't know why you like her. You're 10. And you don't even know why you hate Trump. So I make it clear to my boys that you don't have to think like me and move like me to be my son. But if I'm doing half the job I should be doing, my values will become your values. So for me, my children's faults are my failures. At the end of the day, it's me.
Okay. So so for Sam, so if you were to have kids, would you be cool having mixed race kids? Would that not really be an issue with regards to raising them to be sort of conscious and everything? So where do you stand with having mixed race kids if you were to, let's say, have kids with a white woman?
I wouldn't have a problem having I wouldn't have a problem having mixed race kids. I mean, if I continue the route I'm going, with the relationship I'm in, I'm probably going to have mixed race kids. But yeah, the thing about it though is that like it's really just the whole thing I was pressing on, which is culture. Basically, we talk about it. We talk about culture when we're talking with our kids. When the culture they develop, really the only thing as a parent you can do, especially as a father, is that you can just tell them about their history and guide them in a direction, and really just basically mold them to go in a direction. You really can't. You can apply a few things, but you can't brainwash a person. You really, like, people talk about brainwashing, but a lot of that happens more from society than from the actual parents nowadays. Yeah, but that's one thing to look at.
Okay. So what about you, Corey? If you were to have mixed race kids, do you think it's something that's would be cool with you? Do you think to have difficult sort of making them know where they stand? Would you want them just to choose who they are? Would you want them to know that they are black? How would you sort of handle that?
Yeah, I definitely want them to know. I believe, and maybe this is just my experience as a black man is black on both sides. I would want them to know how important that it is to be a black man, and because society is, for the time being, is going to perceive you as black. You know, you see, for example, you see some of these protests and whatnot, and they are linked to the group BLM or something like that. Well, you look at them and they are, to me, I call them the racially ambiguous, right? You don't know what they are. They could be, we know that we can look at their features and say, oh, he's probably mixed with, Hispanic of some sort or white of some sort. But, society outside the black community, and sometimes in the black community, we will look at them and perceive them as, that's just another light-skinned brother, So it's important if you if you have mixed race children, to let them know how important it is to be black. That part of you, that 50% of you that's black, it's important to instill in them how important it is, especially if it's I guess you can't say that, but black child in general, either sex. So I guess to answer your question, yes, I would make, if I had a child, period. I don't have any children. I'm still practicing, so I'm having fun doing that. But at 40, but
get them on. You'll get them. We'll get there.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm gonna get there. I'm just very selective, So again, I like practicing too. So, but it's very fun. But yes, to answer your question, I think it is important for that child, if they are mixed with white, if they're mixed with anything, black, white, Hispanic, white, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. It's very important to me because, and I guess this is my personal thought. I don't know if anybody else feels like this. I feel that it is very important to be a black man in America. You got a lot of power, man. You are the golden goose. You're hated so much, but you're loved just a smidgen bit more. And if you can use that smidgen to your advantage, you begin to stomp out some of that hate that society has for you, by being a good example of what you're perceived as which is black in that case, and especially a black male. And becoming more so every day for black women too. I'm not trying to diminish the importance of my sisters neither. But yes, it is very important to let that child know that he or she is in fact black, and understand the history of black people, both good and bad. Let's not focus on the bad. Oh, we come from slaves and all that stuff. Nah, man, we come from a long line of inventors, movers, and shakers, man. We do this, saying we with the shit, and we all about securing the bag. Yeah, we done got confused a little bit, but make no mistake, you don't come from confused stock. You come from very pointed and educated stock that knows who you are and what your purpose is in life, and it's up to you to go and get that. You know what I mean? I've been told myself in relationships or dating situations with white women that, oh, you too black, you need to be with a black woman, all this stuff. I'm like, what does that even mean? But the brother said it earlier, I guess she was not feeling when I was talking about issues that bother black people only, that they have no association with it other than being able to understand, and be empathetic. Other than that, they have no real touch on the subject of people touching your hair or, to systemic racism or anything like that. All they can do is understand and accept it as a part of the process, but really can't do much about it themselves. So, yes. Let them know. Because the white history is going to be taught to them. We all get in America. You all pretty much get graded on. You study, you grade, you test, and are subsequently placed on the same version of history. Give or take a demographic. And so they're going to learn the white history. Let's assume that the child is mixed black and white. They're going to learn the white history. They're going to learn. They may learn about Crispus Attucks. They may learn about. They're going to hit the big few in Black History Month, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, so on and so forth. But they leave out the Latimers of the world. They leave out the Patterson brothers of the world. They leave out even some of Carver's lesser known works and stuff. And he's what I would call a popular black figure. I think it's important for them kids to know that too, because again, they're going to learn about Thomas Edison. They're going to learn about Henry Ford. They're going to learn about all the rest of them. They just don't know about themselves. So yes, again, to reinforce my point overall, yes, they need to know about being black. Yes, they do.
Okay. MB, so assuming that you would have mixed race kids, would you sort of enforce and teach them or want to steer them towards being black, contrast on black, or sort of how would you sort of handle that if you were to have mixed race kids? All right, I think MB's thinking this was walking. Daniel, you're there.
What's good, man?
Yeah, what's good? What's up, man? So I want to just give you something. Actually, so just to be clear, I'm sure most of you guys know Daniel is mixed race. So obviously, black father, white mother, and sort of.
You're
I don't know you.
Bro, I thought you were Ugandan.
I am.
He's half Ugandan, half white. Okay, so that happens, man. So
Wait a minute, This is me. I'm not like deep black. All right, I'm like, I'm light skinned. There you go.
All right.
Okay. So because I know you've said this. Okay, so because I know that you've said this to me, obviously, but sort of for guys who don't know, especially for the panel who don't know. So, how were you sort of brought up knowing that you were mixed race, that you had a black father, a white mother? Because I always said to Daniel that, wait a minute, what do you mean by you're black? You're mixed race. You're half black, you're half white. But then you said, no, I'm black. I said, wait a minute, no, you're mixed race. So, how was your upbringing? And
Firstly, it's different. I guess it's different for me because, firstly, I was born in Canada, so the racial dynamic in Canada, it's similar, but it's not the same as it is in America. So I live in North Carolina now, so I can speak to kind of the American South a little bit. But where I grew up, the racial dynamic isn't quite the same. On top of that, my father isn't a descendant of slaves. So like my father is he's Teso, like I'm Teso. Like I can go to my grandfather's village and I can go look at the Teso cave paintings that have been there for thousands and thousands of years. So like I know from whence I came, basically. So there's not this kind of like confusion in my mind of like, oh, I don't know where to go I don't know if Trump sends us all away. Like I know where I can go. So I'm not confused in that sense. So I don't think I'm not saying I'm special, but it's not like when you think of American mixed race people, I guess that's a different mentality than me because I know where I come from. So if you ask Sam if he's going to have a mixed race kids, like his mixed race children will know that we're Nigerian, he'll know that. It's not like, oh, we're just black. What does black mean? Because a country or a culture, maybe you're Igbo or Yoruba, whatever the case may be, that means a lot more, or it holds a lot more weight than just being black, as it were. At least to a child. I guess once you're older and you can kind of understand what Black Americans have built and created, that means something. But to a kid, you just hear black and you're like, what is black? Like, so for me, I come from a paradigm of I know who I am. Then we get into the whole like identification. And I would say maybe, I remember I was maybe 12, 13, somewhere around there. And I went to this youth group, right, at church. And there was another mixed race dude. His mom was black and his dad was white. And they took us to like a camp. And we were like, paddle boats. Like it was me and him. We were like on the paddle boat. And we struck this conversation. So I was like, so what are you? And he was like, what do you mean? What am I? And I was like, so your mom's black, your dad's white. So what do you consider yourself? And he said, I'm just me. Like I'm just like, he almost made it seem like I'm nothing. And I listened to it 12, 13. I was like, you know what? Yeah, that makes sense. Like, how come I just can't be human? You know, like I'm half this, I'm half that. That seems like a good idea. You know, that's cool. And then maybe 2-3 years later, I remember I wanted to go out late at night with my friends. My friends in high school were Black American generally. And my boy Brandon, he was the one that had the license. So whenever we wanted to go somewhere, we called up Brandon, and we went wherever. So we were going to go play basketball at the rec center at like 11, 12 at night. And I was getting my things, I was getting my shoes, I was getting just, you know, everything that you would need to play basketball. And my parents were looking at me like, what is this boy doing? And my mom took me aside and she was like, you can't go. And I was like, what do you mean I can't go? Like, you know, Brandon, he's good friends, he's good people. And she just kind of said I couldn't go. And I remember I went to my room, I was pouting, you know, 15, 16. And she came in, and it was important that it was my mom that told me this, not my dad. So my white mom comes into the room, and I'm not trying to hear her speech, but I listened to it. And what she basically breaks down is, you and your friends will be seen as black in a car late at night. And I don't want, you know, useful. She was insistent on saying black and black. I was like, yo, so for the past few years, I've been trying to like forge this snowflake, I'm special, I'm not black, I'm not white, I'm mixed race, I'm special identity. And my mom is basically telling me like, look, once you leave the four walls of this house, the society doesn't look at you as some mixed snowflake special person. You're a black man.
You black.
And I was like, yo, so 15, 16, my mom is telling me this. And like I said, it's very important that my mom told me this, because I'm like, yo, so my mom is willing to kind of kill a piece of her in me. Like when she looks at me.
Which is crazy. I find that fucking crazy.
But think about it, because like when she tells me I'm black, what she's doing is she's releasing me a little bit, because that's telling her we're different. You know, and that's very important when you grow up in this society, to know that you can be your mixed special snowflake in the house if you want to be. But once you leave those steps, the cops aren't going to shoot you 2 times if they were going to shoot you 4. You know, the bank isn't going to give you a better loan, you know, just because you're mixed race. For all intent and purpose, you're black. So from then on, so maybe 15, 16, I was really like, damn. So I had to think. And then, you know, once you get into college and you start to read and all that kind of stuff, then you kind of get into your pro-blackness. So that's kind of my story. Like, at once I was a snowflake, but now I realize just claiming your mixed race is just a way to say I'm different from you niggas, which is not productive in any sense. So that's where I am. But at the end of the day, I'm Ugandan, if you ask me.
Juan, is your mic working there, Juan?
Yeah, it's working.
All right, cool. So Juan, so basically, what's just sort of talking about interracial dating and so forth. So I'll sort of give you sort of the breakdown of the questions. So first of all, how do you? So with regards to your dating or people who you've dated or you've been with, are you someone who primarily goes for specific race, i.e. only black people, or are you sort of open to dating anyone? And what's your kind of thinking when you're dating with regards to racially?
So a big step off of where I grew up at. I grew up in Miami, so Miami has a lot of different people from different backgrounds that are black.
Latinas. The Latinas in Miami, I need to go to Miami Beach, just saying.
So I grew up in a house. So my mom's from Cuba, so I have a lot of people in my house that are African descent, but from different culture. So when I went to school, I went to a lot of school with people, with a lot of Haitians, Jamaicans, and stuff like that. So I really didn't associate with white American people so much. So my dating, when I viewed in Miami, I looked at it as culture, right? I dated a Haitian girl. I dated a Cuban girl that was a white Cuban girl. So I didn't really see it as much. But when I seen a white American person, I always seen it as very, very different, right? But my view of dating is, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm where I'm at currently right now. I'm about to say some fucked up shit like I usually do. I don't see myself marrying an American white person though. I want to date somebody that's kind of close to my my culture. It doesn't necessarily have to be quote unquote 100% black, or they can be mulatto, whatever the term is, but someone that understands my struggle. I just don't see myself dating. Living in California has definitely changed the way I thought about dating someone that doesn't understand who I am as a black person or how they view what goes through in my life. And that's my thought about dating in a point. I meet a lot of brothers that are very educated, especially out here in California. I feel they simp for American white women, and I'm just not doing that, man. I'm just gonna be straight up. I see a lot of like very educated, attractive brothers. No homo, but they're you look at the white woman, they want like, goddamn dog, like you could have got a badass chick from Colombia or a black chick from Cuba or Dominican Republic or African American chick that's just hot, and they just yeah, I see that a lot of times, especially in California when a brother make a certain amount of money.
Okay, so let me ask you this then, because you sort of made the point. I wanted to ask you this. So for one, though, are you saying that there is no scenario where you would marry a white woman and have mixed race kids? Is that what you're saying, or am I wrong in assessing that?
No.
Speak freely, we're all friends here. Speak freely, we are all friends.
I'll be honest with you, man. If I do marry a white woman, she probably wouldn't be white American, man. I have bad taste in my mouth by white American women, man. Maybe if it's something from the culture that I'm used to, maybe it's from Cuba or something like that, I would, because I did date a girl that was European descent from Cuba, which is completely different. I just don't see myself dating some fucking redneck chick from Tennessee moving to California talking about she liberal and shit and telling me that, mixed race baby, I don't see race, but you have a black kid. I've seen that so many times, right? Like, I don't see myself ever marrying an American white woman ever in my life. I'm going to say that. I'm sorry. I mean, this is how I feel.
This is why that's why I press so much on culture, because like people talk about all this stuff where it's like, because really the problem with the clash here isn't as much of the race as it is the culture. Because like, I mean, American culture is very, very unique in that case, where like the culture is that Black American culture, white American culture in that sense, they do have a clash when it comes to things like that in certain areas. So like, I mean, certain mentalities, certain subsets of each culture don't really get along. It's like water. It's basically like fucking oil and water. Now, I mean, you'll see that different with different people. Like, I mean, a Latin American girl, a Brazilian, Cuban. I mean, sometimes even a European girl. I mean, they might have a different mindset, but it's really the culture that really makes that chemistry work or not, and that's really what matters.
So I want to just go back to Daniel, because I don't think I actually asked you this. So, if you were to get married, who would you get married to racially? So, do you have a thing of like, it's love is love, whoever I fall in love with, fall in love with race?
See, love is a byproduct of your values. So, if you claim to be pro-black, then I can't see how you marry a white woman and have kids with a white woman, because part of being pro-black is uplifting the black community. And part of the black community is knowing that there are black women inside of that community. So
wait. Okay, so let me ask you this. I think this is for everyone to see, because people have said I'm racist for having these views, because I've always said, okay, I use the example of Ice-T. Like and also Ice-T's wife is just that. If ever I was with a white woman, I mean, but before Ice-T was with Coco Austin, I was like, no, Mike, I said, this is the guy from, that was like against the police, F the police, blah, blah, where he fights for black rights. Then when she got married to Coco Austin, I was like, Ice-T, how pro-black can you be really if your wife is white and the kid you are is white? I'm not saying that's your sellers. Hell no, Ice-T is nowhere close to being sellers.
It undercuts the point.
How can you be really? So
yeah, it undercuts the point. So the way that I've grown up over the past, 20 years or so. I don't want to give my age on here, but yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to be with the black woman. That's how I see it. Maybe North African, but African point blank. Like, there's no, I'm not gonna be with a white person, especially because have you seen Drake's Baby? I can't risk it. My nigga. I can't risk it, dog. Like,
now, see, we ain't got to talk about nobody kids now.
I can't risk it. Like, I'm really, I don't want a Logic. I don't want a Drake Baby. Like, nah. So I can't risk it. Plus, like, knowing the hoops that kind of I had to jump through, and mine were pretty simple. I mean, just understanding you're black isn't that difficult, but it's still a hoop. If you have a kid like that looks like Drake's kid or like Logic, imagine like the parenting hoop you got to jump through. I just rather not. So let's just keep it black. That's why I am with it.
So it's
come on. So Daniel, you are saying that you would reject having such a cute child like that? What?
I want to jump through the mental.
We all guys cheering, but dang.
I don't want to jump through the mental hoops of raising a child like that, because I know that child's gonna raise up like, so my dad's mixed race, my mom. So what am I? For me, it's easy. For him, it's probably not gonna be that easy. So,
but I guess
on top of all that, black women are the finest women on the planet. So it's not really that difficult of a choice.
But I got something to add though. But that's a concept of how we grew up in the U.S. and race is always such a factor of how somebody think, how my child's going to look. That is the evil of the U.S.
Yeah, it's fucked up, but that's the world we live in until this revolution pops off. So
get that child off the screen, please.
Damn. I mean, they say every child is beautiful, man. They say every child is beautiful, right?
Take that baby with his mouth open like that, though.
Okay, let me explain this image. So let me just explain this whole thing.
That lip.
This is why you get into this difficulty, and this is why this whole mixed race thing. So before we even saw this kid and so forth, I remember I watched, and I think I told Daniel about this. I watched the Rap Radar with Elliot Wilson and B Dot, and I saw Drake's interview on it. And there was a portion in this where Drake said that he doesn't feel that he gets credits for the achievements that he's done as a black artist. And so Elliot was sort of prodding him, okay, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? But say, yeah, like, he feels, if it was someone else, they'd really prop up what he's achieved in the music industry. But he doesn't really get to that kind of thing. And I connected the dots in saying that, which is why Pusha T's thing was so piercing. That would have really pierced Drake, really. I think Drake has always been one of where he does want to be seen as black. I'm the black artist. I'm doing this for black people. I'm really black, blah, blah, and so forth. Which is why, because really, the fact about it is that this was not planned. This kid was not planned, and he did not plan to have a child with the lady who I think is an ex-porn star. Don't quote her. I think she's an ex-porn star. No, it's what I heard. Okay, maybe she's not, but she's okay, fine. So, but now when you have a child like this, this child is white to me. Now, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that this now sort of goes against what Drake has been fighting so hard for. I'm black. So if Drake then says, I'm pro-black, and then this is your child, who's a white man, it's like,
so this is why love and having kids has to be a product of your value. Like, what do you, if you claim to be pro-black, then your family should then be black. That's standard, right? Am I wrong?
That's American standard, brother. That's not.
So, I have a question about that. So, do you give up your blackness for love to a white woman or a non-black woman, or can you still be pro-black and for your people, even though you may be married to and or have children with someone who's non-black?
I mean, if it happens before you're conscious, then there's nothing you can do about it. But if you're conscious, then, as I say, love is a factor of your values.
So and I think, see, this is the.
I think we're both right.
Keith, this discussion of love, because from Daniel's point of view, which I'm probably leaning towards too, love isn't just she's got big tits and she's got like a fat ass. Yeah, that may be to it as well, because obviously you have to be sexually attracted as a foundation. But really, your attraction to someone is you're attracted to their values. See, if the attraction is just, and you claim that your loving attraction is purely physical, it will end up in a divorce. And
that's a fetish. That's a fetish. If you like someone exclusively for what that's fetishizing.
Right.
So,
Racial fetishism.
and
A lot
oh my
of
gosh,
a lot
you
of
two
people fetishize each other nowadays.
wait. This is another area I want to get you guys into, and I want to get everyone's thoughts on this. So this is my view. This is my view, and this is just my view. Just my view. There, I keep telling you that whenever I see a black guy and a white woman, I always stare. I'm like, wait, what's happening? And the black guy looks like he's trying to beat me up, and I'm like, okay, cool, chill, relax. I'm just staring at you. So my thing is, I feel, especially for Eastern European women, that white women are with black guys because of the fetish and the sexual fantasy. It isn't real. It is purely a physical sexual attraction because of what they see black men as. Now, it could be the whole thing of like, oh man, they've got huge dicks, all that kind of stuff. But it's purely a physical sexual thing. It isn't very real. So we come back to Sam now. Do you feel that most? Now, I'm not saying all, but do you feel most unions when you see a white woman and a black man is purely a physical sexual thing and nothing more, or do you think that is wrong to have that kind of sweeping statement?
I'm gonna actually go alongside with you, but I'm actually gonna extend that to something that's even more shocking, which a lot of people don't really like talking about. This is a big elephant in the room, but most relationships are predicated on lust and sex.
Oh yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter if it's a white girl, doesn't matter if it's a black girl, doesn't matter if it's an Asian girl. Why do you think that there's in the United States, there's a 55% divorce rate? That's across, and I'm saying 55% across the board. Like, the thing is that black women, white women, I mean, all types of women, and when we get the feels, the first thing we feel is lust. We may get caught up in that shit because, oh, that pussy was good. But at the end of the day, like, we say, hey, I'm in love with this woman. But at the end of the day, there's got to be more substance to that. And if you don't find that extra substance, then what's the point? And then you end up getting into a relationship, you get married, and you don't find things in common, and then you get divorced like 3-4 years later. You have a bunch of kids, like, they're now like, you're doing all the parenting stuff. I know this sounds like some MG toe shit, but like, it's men going their own way type shit, but it's something that needs to be brought up.
Juan, so how do you view? So do you view the white woman, black man thing? Do you view it as just a sexual fantasy, or
sometimes I feel sometimes black men fetish white women just as much. It goes both ways.
The forbidden fruits.
I think it depends. I think a lot of here in America that definitely happens. In Eastern Europe, that's where I went to Serbia, and I heard some of the conversations, and very beautiful women. I don't think I ever married one because the conversations, the things that were said, it was more like a circus or some shit like that. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
First, I want to see how big your thing is, things like that. I mean, that's why a lot of times you see a lot of brothers, you know, they marry one of these Eastern European girls, bring in the U.S., end up leaving their ass because it never was real in the first place. Can I say every black and white couples like that? Because you can't generalize. But I like what my man said earlier about a lot of relationship is from lust and difference. So how do you know when it's a sexual fantasy or it's just people like different things, a different culture? You like the culture of the language or the way the woman, you may like the culture of the person, of the person you're dating. So I think a lot of fetishes do go on. Well, like give an example. This is a fetish of sometimes American white women. They like to, these very blonde white girls. They don't look for no educated brother. They look for the most hoodest nigga out there today.
Yeah.
That's the fetish.
It's a fantasy.
It's a fantasy, right?
Maybe because they're looking at the black man as a sexual beast.
Yeah,
they want to be a beast, and they want to be fucked by a beast.
Exactly. So they like this stereotype they have is like we have the dicks, or we're strong, we're dominant, and if you're not that way, if you're not that type of black guy, you're like an Urkel type black guy, you're not going to get talked to. But I can't generalize off everything like that. But you can find, I think you can find some, but I noticed it. I noticed it when I was more in Europe, though. When I was in Serbia and Poland, man, it was so much of a fantasy. I feel like I was in a fucking zoo. I mean, I did tear some ass up though. I ain't gonna lie though. But when I was, but I mean, yeah, that's all I gotta say about that.
Okay, man. All right.
You can call me Urkel Ali Muhammad Ding, and I'm slanging dang-a-lang in the southern gun. Damn, what they talk about? Nah, I'm busting it.
So, CA, what about you, CA? Do you view whites, because didn't you say that you only date white women? I think you said that, didn't you?
No, man, that wasn't me, bro. No, I
don't know who it was. So
no, I've dated. Well, you know, I've lived in Asia and I've lived in Europe and I've dated everything. You know, I lived in Japan for 4 years, so you know, I dated about everything, bro. I mean, and Japan is. You want to talk about the fetishism is completely different in Japan. We can talk about that another day because that's different from Europe. But yeah, like I do believe that it all begins in fetishism, man. Of course, especially in the U.S. It all begins. That's like you said. That's the foundation of everything. You know, but I believe as you get older, at least for me, as you get older, that lust and that fetish shit isn't worth it sometimes for the amount of shit you got to put up with. You know what I'm saying? Because you could be dating like a really cute non-black girl or whatever, but the amount of stuff you got to put up with is just not worth it. I mean, as you get older, and you don't hit every kind of pussy every which way, that shit just doesn't become worth it anymore. Especially if they want a relationship, they're gonna get married. It's like, nah, I'm cool off that. You know, I just do. I mean, we could fuck, but I'm like, I can't get married to you. You know, kind of thing.
I want to jump in real quick on that because, like, just off of what I said before, and this is also off of what Raymond said just before he left. You could be with a black woman and literally not contribute anything. It goes the same way with relationships. I mean, you could be with a black woman because people talk because the way I hear a lot. I mean, the emphasis on like, okay, you should be with a black woman. Just because they're not gonna get with you off of fetishizing. I mean, we see people in the hood that run through like 1, 3, 4 women, get them all pregnant, and I'm just saying, bro. Like,
but Sam, can I ask you? Do you think that there are benefits of being with somebody from the same culture as you, for raising your kids, for your mental health, for your peace of mind, all that? Do you think there's benefits of dating somebody with this, and not just an American and another American, but I mean a black American and a black American, or a Cambodian and a Cambodian, or a Vietnamese and a Vietnamese? Is there advantages?
There are advantages, but the thing about it also you got to consider is the marriage rate and the divorce rate in the black community. They're both very, very. I mean, they're both going in different directions. The marriage rate is very low, and the divorce rate is very high. It's higher. It's one of the highest divorce rates in the entire United States.
Wait. I want to just get everyone's views on this. Something to go back. So, Corey White, black, white. Do you think it's just purely a sexual, physical thing, or?
I think it has a lot of its. I think it's got a lot of strong roots in sexual things, fetishism. You know, I think in American culture, sex is sold us in so many different ways that we don't know a lot of times what it is we like. We just think with our small head as opposed to thinking with our big head most of the time. We make those mistakes, you know, and then we try to go back and cover them up, i.e. child support and, you know, having a baby mama with a bad relationship with the baby mama. But I think to some degree, yeah, interracial relationships, especially with, you know, white women, a lot of times start largely with the fetish, you know, one way or another or both, you know, myself not being excluded from that, in that I've been approached on dating websites, you know, which are essentially, you know, undercover speakeasy hookup sites, you know, they you know, they come at you with this sexual undertone, or sometimes just straight out with it. Like the brother said, you know, let me see how big your dick is, you know, let me see what you can do with that thing. You know, and sometimes, you know, just based on, you know, physical attributes, I may oblige. You know, I may just show it to you. You know, let you do what you want with it. You know, but you know, getting back to a serious point, I think that yes, that a lot of it is fetishism. Some people have these one that I've gotten, and I ask these questions. It's funny we're having this. I ask these questions. What is it that you like about me? What is it that you like about black men? Like, why do you date black men? Mexican gal or Asian gal or white gal. What is it that you like about me? Is it my skin? Is it my this? And it's usually some of the same things, right? It's black men, treat so much better. Black men have this kind of swag about them. Black men are more confident, and all this stuff. A lot of it I've also heard are comparing us to their own men and their own culture. Mexican men are this way, or white men are this way, and black men are so much, better because of X, Y, Z. So they tend to gravitate toward it. I've even had the one that says, I like the contrast of the skin, and so. Hey, brother, you asked a question. I'm just giving it to you like we told it.
Nah, he's not wrong. I dated a white girl, and when we lay in bed, she was just like, she'd put her arm inside of mine and she'd be like, I love this.
And that's a psychological thing.
And I was like, what?
Hold on, brother. That's what's happening.
Bro.
Come on to the South there, brother.
UK
brother, they're hosting this.
UK brother.
And you African too? Oh yeah, they gonna love you, nigga.
But it's not. We're not even talking
the reputation. We ain't even like that, bro. We ain't even like that out in these streets, man.
Bro, Corey, why did this girl have a
Hey, yo, I done ran across that too. I like, as long as I got the whip,
nigga.
Right? She wanted, bro, this girl wanted to dress up like an old timey Southern belle and wanted me to dress up in like rags.
I've had that, brother. I've had that.
Only in America, dog. Only in America.
Yeah, man.
I had that one. I'm a one up you on that one. The same chick wanted me to piss on. I'm like, all right, it's time to go.
Did she want you to piss on her as a slave?
Inadvertent squirt.
Did she want you to do that while you were a slave and shit, bro?
Like intentionally piss on somebody.
Oh my god.
Bro, I'm telling you though, this girl, she legit wanted me to dress up like a slave and she wanted to be a Southern belle. And she wanted me to take it. Fuck no, I broke up with her.
That's some cool shit. If you
my thing is that if there's a situation where contrast, I love this. I jump out the window. I don't know where I'm jumping to. I'm like, cool, thank you. I jump out the window. See, that's scary. Because what that shows is that they don't see you as a human being.
Booyah. Understand too. There's a whole genre of porn about this too, about those slaves, and then understand too in American culture that how pornography has influenced sexuality in America and relationships in America. Not just worldwide, but we just focus on America for a second. We put whatever porn out there on these sites, and again, they sell us sex in so many different ways. Free porn on the internet. You go on there. I mean, I've seen shit where you got porn called white whore destruction. I've seen that. Yes, I clicked on it, and I sure did.
What was it? White whore destruction.
White whore destruction.
Oh, okay.
And whore is WHORE, right? So if you're over writing it down or typing it in, go ahead. But there is this porn though that exists that is all racial fetishism, and it's come full swing both ways, because I've seen it where you have that, and you have black men having sex with white women, whereas they call them, give me that nigger dick. They say
about to go there. I was just literally. It's so crazy.
That's exactly what they say, and then you got it on the other side too.
No, because this was years ago, and there was this blonde chick. I was like, okay, this is going well. We're to talk to her as well. We're sort of, getting a bit spicy, foreplay and everything. Then she was like, oh man, I want some of that nigger dick. I was like, whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
But here's the thing though, right? Like me personally, I don't abide that word. Like I don't like it said in my presence. I don't say it to people. I don't tolerate it, right? But you can say that you felt some kind of way about her saying that. But the N-bomb has been dropped several times in this conversation, and you did not raise those same flags. So do you have a problem with the word, or do you have a problem with who says it is that's the question, right? Me personally, I don't think anyone should, but you know, there's a whole genre, there's a whole bunch of black dudes out there who get off on being called pieces of shit. But that's no different than there's white dudes who like to have their balls stepped on and called a piece of shit by a mistress. It's the same shit. I'm not going to shame anybody's fetish.
You can shame that fetish,
but
So
you can't get mad at the porn industry. No, bro. You can't get mad at the industry for providing what the people want. They wouldn't have a whole fucking genre behind this. There's a genre behind women getting fucked in stables by big black men who are muscular. They wear those country girl dresses.
Be very clear.
And that's
Be very
the whole
clear.
thing.
And this is just a reality. There are black men that like that. 100%. There are black men who like to have sex with white women where they're called a nigger. And they like that because they get
half hope. And look, we can't. It's hard to have a conversation, especially in the American context, with black women or black men without discussing internalized anti-blackness. Because the only way that you would do that to yourself is if you don't appreciate yourself. And the reason you don't appreciate yourself is because you've been told black is ugly, black is easy to be. Just that whole trope. So if you could pull up, I think it's a Vogue magazine with LeBron James and Giselle Bundchen. I remember this. This was like one of the classic examples. It's taken like right out of King Kong, and this is basically what America serves.
That's deep right there.
Pull it up.
So no.
Pull it up.
Also, hey, real quick,
I'm going to find a big version of it. What the heck?
That's real talk. Oh, he's seen it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find like a large version of this.
And this is basically what America feeds to us. That the black man is the beast, the white woman is there to be rescued in distress. And black people internalize it just as much as white people do. And then you end up with people in fucking stables getting fucked.
Well, but think about it though. The chick in Central Park, who said, "I'm going to tell them that there's a black man who's about to assault me." That's an offshoot of that mentality. She knew that she knew what it meant to tell the cops that she's in distress because a black man's going to attack her. It's the trope of it's the old trope of the white woman is the damsel in distress. We must protect her. We must protect her virtue.
They got this nigga dribbling a basketball too. Like, shut up and dribble. Fuck some white women.
Well, no, but yeah, you.
I call them Nigga, not nigger. So, come on, man.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you something though. I'm gonna tell you something that everybody educated knows.
This is my
There's no fucking difference.
And I want everyone's view, and I think it's good that we brought this up because this is even a separate topic that we could even expand upon. Let's just throw this in as a starter. Maybe we can finish off next week. There is no difference between GGER and GGA.
There is a big difference.
There is 100% not. And when you say that shit, you sound real ignorant.
Okay. No. Whoa. Okay, now if
hold up, let's take turns. Okay,
let's just go. Okay, so Sam. Okay, so we'll go Sam. MB thing is so Sam. Speak on it.
So my opinion, I get the whole point, but at the end of the day, they're both ignorant, both very ignorant. I mean, one is ignorant in the sense of racism. The other one is ignorant in the sense of just like, especially when black people are saying it to other black people, like. It's just ignorant because ignorant people are fucking saying ignorant shit to each other. It's just like saying like, because I mean like if you say the N-word with the A at the end to like your homies, I mean that's to me that I hold that at the same level as like somebody calling like somebody shithead, like what's up shithead, what's up asshole, or like a girl calling another girl like what's up bitch.
Yeah.
I mean like it doesn't it's real. It's still low. It's still like ignorant. I mean, it's not something that you would use with grown ass people, with professional people. Like it's, and I really don't see the point in it. It's just kind of like dumb.
Okay. What's it called? CA.
Yeah. What was the question again?
So basically, I said, in my opinion, there is no difference between nigger and negra, i.e. GGA, GGER. They're exactly the same thing, and they're both problematic? Or do you think that there's a difference between the two?
Yeah, I mean, like, well, obviously, growing up, I've you know, like a lot of young black people, I use NIGGA among my homies and stuff like that. And shit, man, growing up, if there was a white dude in the neighborhood and he got the pass, he could use it. Call him that too.
He got the
So I mean, like, I don't know, man. Growing up, there was that, and then but I think nowadays we need to retire that fucking word. I mean, it really is like like Malcolm said, man. Like you don't have any, you're not educated enough to use the right words except these swear words and this nigga shit. Then but I mean, like I get it, man. I get it. That was the exact quote. That's what he said. This nigga shit. No, but I mean, like, obviously, like it takes time to make its way out of the vernacular, out of the vocabulary, man. And it's a really useful word, man. It's a really useful word. What can I say? I mean, like, it's hard to take it out. Just like females call each other bitch. And I was at a rest stop going through South Carolina. And these white guys were at the gas station calling each other white trash and cracker. Like, they were calling each other that. So, I mean, like,
yeah, but does it have the same cultural impact?
It doesn't have the same cultural impact. That's why I said we probably need to retire that word. We probably need to retire that word.
Bingo.
So,
but my thing is, if you want to see white folk get upset about a word, call them a racist.
Mm-hmm.
That's their word. Like if at even the hint that you're calling them a racist, they will lose their shit. And my thing is, it's like, here's my thing. Now, if you would not say that word to your grandma, and would you say that word to your grandma, like, ha, would you say that and say, oh no, it's all in love, grandma, because I said it with an A. Like, think about how she would look at you. Think about how ignorant you sound, but then think about how she would look at you for saying that. Like, you would not say that word because it's not a proper word. My thing is this: if you don't want to hear white people say a certain thing, don't fucking say it. For you people, I'm going to tell you straight up, that word doesn't get used in my presence by anybody. Straight up. Because I've made it known I don't tolerate it. But even beyond that, I don't use it. So nobody feels comfortable enough to speak that way around me. If you don't want it used, don't use it. But if you're going to say, I'm just joshing with my boys and blah, 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 some other country ass shit like that, then when you see somebody on the news or TV or whatever, or in the street, drop that word, you have no right to be angry because you yourself don't have a big enough problem with it to stop using it yourself.
Okay, sorry. So before I come to Daniel with the C, my thing is that it's two ways here. White people, that argument of like, hey, but you guys use the word, can't I use it? No, that's stupid. Don't use it. Okay, because it's coming from you will always be racist, so don't use it. But at the same time, it's just very foolish saying that, well, we can say it, but you can't. No, but we've not taken ownership of the word. No, it is what it is. You just calling it A as opposed to ER. No, it sounds the same. It still sounds the same. Because if an English person says nigger, they will say it like NIGGA. If an English person with an English accent doesn't say nigger, they say nigger, which sounds like GGA. So then what? Daniel, thoughts on this?
No, so I want to add, like, so MB, like, do you not understand like the different contexts and ways it could be used? So if somebody comes up to you and says, "What's good, my nigger?" And then if somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, nigger," like, you don't understand the different contextual elements that go in that.
If somebody walks up to me and says, "Hey, my nigga," I'm gonna ask them who the fuck they're talking to.
Okay. Exactly. I didn't even care if that dude's a black dude. I would tell him like, "Yo, who the fuck are you?"
Don't say what's my nigga. Even a black, don't say what's.
I wish. Man, listen.
I'm just trying to understand where he's coming from. That's all. I'm just asking the question.
No, and that's fine. That's peace and love. But at the same time, brother, you got to understand something. Nobody should call you out of your name. Nobody should ever. First off, that word is filthy and disgusting, right? Nope. And you could say, oh, well, the modern vernacular, blah, blah, blah. Bro, I don't care. You know what? People can call, you can call someone a fag and say, well, that means about a bundle of sticks, but you're still gonna get fired for it.
Yeah.
So why are we pretending? So why are we pretending that because you add a fucking A to a word instead of an ER, it's different? It's not. So using common sense and using common sense and looking at yourself with self-respect, you should never use that word or accept that word being used in your presence or to address you.
So I understand. I understand what
Straight
it
up.
is.
Daniel, finish your point because we were on Daniel.
Well, no, I was just trying to fully understand his point. I just wanted him to develop the point. That's it. No, and like, look, I use it. I think I used it more in my youth, just because. And like the more conscious you get, hopefully, like those are things that you can drop at the wayside. But as I think it was Sia that said it, I mean, it's so culturally prevalent that it's pretty hard to stop it. So yeah, should people say it? Probably not. But it is kind of hardwired once you get in the swing of things to like stop saying it. So
only if you, bro, only if you.
Well, okay, no, question.
Like saying,
no, but question.
Like saying,
did you ever use it regularly, and then you came into this like knowledge or understanding, or have you just never used it ever in life?
I put it this way: when I was a child, like I'm talking like a child, and I heard other Black people using it, I didn't understand. I just used the word that was used around me. When I became old enough to actually understand the history of it and realize that, wow, this is pretty fucking stupid, I stopped. You have to understand something though. I think the first time that I really felt the sting of how stupid this was as I'm a young Black man growing up in the South Bronx, right? I'm taking the subway home, and this group of Puerto Rican kids just start, yo, no, they're just going back and forth. And I'm just like, you guys are really free with that shit. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't like it when they use that. And then you know, in a group of Black kids, I don't like it when they use it either. And then I'm thinking to myself, I damn sure don't like the fact that it's being used in mixed fucking company. Because now these white folks on this train see me as they see those kids who, those kids were, I mean, they're probably in a gutter somewhere if they're still alive, but they're pieces of shit in general. But you know what I mean? I'm saying that they were thugged out. You know, those were thugged out kids is what I'm saying, right? So, but to a casual observer, regardless of the color that they are, they see kids who share my skin or close to it. From my same, probably from my same hood, because we're on the same subway. They see them acting a fool. They see them using that language. And then they look at me in the corner, not saying shit, but they see me looking like them. It's no different than how I feel when I see brothers on the corner being corner bums. And the same brothers I see when I'm leaving for work in the morning are still there drinking another 40 when I'm coming home. But when people from outside of our neighborhood look at me, they see them. And that's what I fight as a fucking professional. In this world,
so is this
which
would you class that as like respectability politics in a sense, where it's like I want to look respectable to other people, so I won't say it ever?
It's self-respect, bro. It's self-respect.
This is not
so I know MD feels real strongly about this. I know that, gentlemen.
So I want to come to Juan now. So Juan, where do you stand on this whole thing of the words nigger, and so forth?
Actually, I think the guys are right. I mean, consensus is not any differently. I mean, I do use the word, not as often as I did when I was younger. I've been trying to refrain myself to use the word. I don't use it at work or anything like that. It's not an excuse. But what I've noticed when a lot of brothers talking about using the N-word, I hear these things, how they see me. I don't want white people to say it. I don't give a fuck what white people think about me if I say the word or not. They're going to use it regardless. So I hear always brothers talking about, oh, how they see me. I don't want to look like brothers on the street. First of all, worry about way too much what white people think about us. So that's that. We need to move away from that, how they see us. Because they're going to see us regardless if we say it or not. So number one, that we need to kill that. So I hear a lot of professionals, I don't want these brothers on the street make me look bad, and I'm a professional, man. Man, get the fuck out of here, man. Come on, man. No.
Yeah, but here's the problem with that though. Here's the problem with that thought process though.
Can I finish? All right, cool. Back to what I'm saying. Okay. What I'm saying that I hear a lot of this talk from a lot of brothers about how they see me. They have to be looked in a certain way upon white presence. That's the same shit when a brother get professional and he marry a white woman. So that goes back to this word, right? You're right. This word should never be used, but I always hear in the context of how they, not about Latinos, not about Asians. It's always about how white people see it. That's the very enslaved mentality African Americans have.
You see, I agree. I would say if you want to stop using it personally because it's a self-conviction that you personally have, then that's fair. But if you're using it just so you don't look like you're, I don't know, like a hood, like you're from the hood or something, for the benefit of white people to make you then look, oh, I'm not like those other ones, I'm a more professional, dignified Negro, then that is a line that I don't think that I carry. It just depends on how you come at it, and that's why I was trying to understand why MB has the perspective.
But you have to understand something, right? You have to understand something. Hold on 1 second.
I want to come to Corey White afterwards. So MB, go for it.
You have to understand something. I am management. So, yes, you are right. They already feel this way. The difference is if I carry myself and act a certain way, when they talk out their face or act fucky or act funny, I can then say, what made, like, all right, boom, I'll tell, matter of fact, I got a story about that. I had a guy in the office, it was Martin Luther King's birthday. Sam probably remembers this because I made a big post about it on my Facebook. Guy asked me, he says, oh, I thought you'd be at the parade. And I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, I thought you'd be at downtown at the Martin Luther King Jr. Day parade. And I'm like,
remember that.
Okay, why would you think that? And you remember that, right? And he's like, and I'm like, no, seriously, why would you think that? And this is in front of everybody. So I'm fucking with them. I'm laughing hysterically internally. My point about it is, again, going back to the one thing that white folks hate, which is being called a racist. If you carry yourself in such a way, this is like saying, well, I'm not going to turn my music down, or I'm going to act a fool. I'm not going to show a cop my ID when I get pulled over because I shouldn't have to, and blah, 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 blah. Like that mentality that you're talking about not towing the line and it's borderline calling brothers who do Uncle Tom. But I'm going to tell you, but here's the thing. When you do toe the line, when motherfuckers step over the line, you get to call them on it. When you walk around calling people who look like
talking about work,
that word,
you said management. That's two different things. You different level.
No, because you said you basically.
Who at work?
And I'm talking about work.
Let's get a round of his points so I can look very well. So point.
Hear me out. What I'm saying is, when you carry yourself a certain way, and somebody likens you to somebody not carrying themselves a certain way,
nigga,
you have a right to say something at that point.
Nigga, man, please, man, you killing that.
See what I mean? That's slave mentality. That's slave mentality. The brother. See what I mean? Like, hey, HH. This goes back to what I said earlier about crabs in a barrel.
I'm not understood like, I'm not black people.
Corey White, your thoughts on this. Corey White, your thoughts on this.
So I struggle with the use of the word myself because I, like MB, have worked in corporate America as regional management over several dealerships and such. MB knows a little bit about my professional history. I've also been in banking as well. And so I struggle with the use of the word. Do I love it? I'm like Bernie Mac. I wake up in the morning, I say it 10 times just to keep my teeth white. But I do know that we have a very strange relationship with the word. And I say that, as I think I'm hearing a trend. Most of us used the word heavily when we were kids growing up and being influenced by pop culture, Black pop culture, music, our elders, so on and so forth. But as we've gotten older, I think he was kind of alluding to when I was a child, I spake as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. I think we have a struggle with that relationship with that word. And I came across a book some years back by Dr. Randall Kennedy. You can look it up. I think it's called Nigger, the history of a troublesome word. I may not be saying that right, but Dr. Randall Kennedy wrote about the lineage of the word, the different uses from, like we're talking about the A's and the ERs, but also understand that white people too have A's and ERs too. That was used in the plantation class, whereas they looked at it as Negra, and anyone that used nigger was looked at as white trash almost, or less than themselves. So they also have their battle with. They've also had their battle with the A's and the ERs, and it's just kind of flipped its face, here recently with the acceptance of it after the Chappelle show back in the early 2000s, and all the how popular hip hop culture, who that's a pillar, in rap. We know that, your favorite rapper, I don't care who it is, has used that word, at one point or another in he or she's work. And so we have in America, especially as Black people, we have this very funny relationship with this word, whereas it's okay for, someone else. It's not okay for anyone else outside of us to say it. And, I'm under the understanding that, our usage of the word is heavily linked to the game or the game known as the dozens, what we now call roasting in slavery times, whereas we would use it to mock the master or the plantation owner. I hate using that word master, but and I apologize for that, but that how it's linked to that and how we would impersonate the plantation owner when we got off work and were able to loosen our tongues a little bit, be amongst ourselves, and we would go back and one and forth another. And while it was, roasting or the dozens was not nearly as, pointed and personal as it is nowadays, back then in its very infant form, we would say things like, to mock the master, or excuse me, the plantation owner, we would mock him and say, "Come here, nigga," and somehow it evolved to us taking the word takes ownership, right? In that context, it takes ownership. And so as we do with lemons, and we turn it into lemonade, we've taken that word and used it and assessed it to a term of ownership, of friendship, brother, kinship, and all that kind of stuff. We've even done so more recently in the recent years with some of our white friends and stuff. I hear it all the time. I don't do this. I do not use the word around. I'm guilty of maybe quoting somebody, or I might let something slip every now and again, but I check myself on that and try to watch out with that. But I do not use that word. If I'm talking, let's say that me and MB stand there with some of our mutual friends, I'm certainly not going, I know how MB feels about that, so I'm not going to address him like that anyway. But let's just say I didn't know him like that and I addressed him. I'm not going to address him that way, because I believe that gives them, more power to use that word against me and MB and others that look like us. It doesn't matter if we shovel shit or we are counting money at the top of Merrill Lynch. It doesn't matter. To them, we are that. When we use that, when we look at ourselves that way, it gives them a subconscious pass to be able to also look at us that way. And so, yeah, I at the end of the day, I wish that even I myself could break up with that word. I have a very funny relationship with the word myself. I've used it in this conversation for the last 3 hours. I enjoy it as a use of camaraderie. It does take ownership over every brother in this conversation, but at the same time, I understand that my brother MB and others on the conversation, it may not take that level of ownership and context with them. So I will refrain and do my best to not use that out of respect to them. And I feel what MB is saying. It's tough. It's tough, man. It's tough. It's tougher to me than quitting smoking cigarettes, and or just as tough, because it has been something I use. I'm probably going to use it later today. I'm probably going to use it.
I like it.
This just reminds me of that scene in Glory. You remember Glory?
And I feel that MB is a brother that is pushing us to be better. Pushing us to be better as individual Black men, or else he's right. It comes a point that there's no need to having these types of forums, these types of conversation, because we come to a stopping point, right? And we as Black men, as leaders, we cannot afford to stop evolving mentally, let alone physically. In that regard, we have to be able to accept a brother like MB, his opinion and his strong stance on it. I mean, I'll tell you what, that he stands on it, and for that, I applaud him, and I will support him on that. And I've even listened to him speak before and internalized what he said and tried and try to use his words as sort of a breaker, if you will. It's kind of like the Nicorette gum. I try to use it as to break me off of using that word, because he's right, brothers. He's right. That word don't do us any good. It is literally the most harmful word in the spoken language. I believe Dr. Kennedy did some sort of he did research on it, and he wrote it in his book, talking about the words that have the same effect as that word. And there's not one. You know, the nearest word to it that he could come up with was the C word used for women. I just personally don't like the way it sounds coming out of my mouth. But you all know what I mean. And then he goes down kind of the hierarchy of racial epithets and also other offensive terms. And there's nothing, guys. There's nothing that carries the weight of that word when it's used. Period. You know, whether it's whether you use it in the context of brotherhood. You know, let's assume that you subscribe to that and that's what you do. You know, for me to say to you, you are my nigga, that is like, without calling you my brother, that's the closest that you can get to it. Therefore, I'm taking ownership of you and our friendship. On the other hand of that, you flip that over. If someone outside of the Black community calls you that, it is the most harmful word. They can call you motherfucker. They can call you dick sucker. They can call you faggot. They can attach 18 different adjectives together and then add your name at the end, and it still does not carry near the weight of that 6-letter little word, whether it's capitalized or not. And I've had several incidents where I've had to explain that. As recent as everything that's going on, I had an incident at work, where some non-blacks use it. I'm the only brother that does what I do. I realize that I'm an example of tokenism, and that's fuck that. And it's unfortunate, but I'm getting them bread though. But I understand that.
I hear you, man.
Let me just say this. I think, and this is something I remember. I think it's Live on the Sunset Strip. So this is just to sort of end this. Live on the Sunset Strip. It was
when I got off the plane. There were no niggas.
Yeah, Richard Pryor. So Richard Pryor, he told the story about how, and this is Richard Pryor was the guy just saying nigga, this nigga. Like nigga was freely going through his mouth. Sort of how he went to an African country. He went there, and for the first time ever, and this is something that, I have known this growing up in Nigeria. Like the first white person I saw was when I was 6 years old. So for most African Americans, you've grown up saying, no, the white man is always at the top and always at the end. That's how but for me, it was different where everyone is black. So when Richard Pryor went to an African country and saw that everyone is black, the sweeper is black, the banker is black, the newspaper guy is black, the predator is black, the manager, everyone from every fast society is black. I was like, oh, this nigga thing doesn't mean anything. So when he now went back to America, he realized how problematic it was. It's almost like the whole thing of like Plato's cave, where you believe that this cave and everything is your reality. When you now leave the cave and say, oh, there's a whole world beyond this cave. So I think for African Americans, they believe that America is the reality, but America was built on disease and built on crime and built on blood and built on violence and built on slavery and built on injustice. That's what it was built upon. So that's what nigga, as much as you want to try and change and twist it, it has its roots. And its roots is extremely racist. I understand where African Americans are coming from, but there's no other way to twist it. That word will always be that word. And you will not realize how problematic that world is because of the prism of America that you're living within until you globalize yourself and realize just what America is from the outside in. We realize how problematic that world is.
Wait a minute. Okay, have a question. You call people coons though, and coon would have came from white people too.
Yep.
So do you not feel bad about saying, oh, Terry Crews is a coon or Candace Owens is a coon? Like, if we're not using what white people have created full stop, then I suggest we all start learning Kiswahili and, I should throw away my apple.
See, this is for me. For me, the word nigger is a lot more problematic and a lot more piercing than coon. Now, let me be clear here. You see, the word, I hate, and I try and stop myself using the word coon in public, specifically in the vicinity of white people.
That's how I feel about like I'll only use it specifically among black people.
It's not the same. No. Do you know what coon is? Wait. Do you know what coon is? Coon is, I am saying that you have failed, and I need a word that what you're doing has failed. So it's almost as if you tell a child, don't do that, don't do it, you need to get someone to beat a child, I'm like, oh, I will stop. So the word coon is so piercing, but I'm using it to help you. The word calling her a nigger, how is that helpful? That's not helping you. But the word coon, it is to help you to know that, bro, you've really messed up. And you messed up so bad, I've called it that this horrible word to know how badly you've messed up.
All right, okay.
So, guys,
I hear what he's saying.
It's been swell. It's been good. Thank you so much. Hopefully, Sam, you can give me the details of everyone's socials and everything, so I can put them in the description box. Because I'm sure a lot of guys will want to follow you guys and everything and so forth. And hopefully, we can see you guys again next. Because I want to do this every Tuesday. So the time is Tuesday, 7 p.m. And it'll be great if we can have all these guys back in here again next Tuesday, 7 p.m. So we can all have these discussions. I think these discussions are really great, man. So, guys, thank you very much, and hopefully, I will see you guys next week. And thank everybody for tuning in. Please like the vid, subscribe, all the other stuff. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for the support, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Peace out. Peace. Become a Half Hope Sort member and gain access to exclusive videos and also the chance to watch films, anime, or different videos with your boy HH exclusively. Just click below on the join button to join in and become a Half Hope Sort member to gain access to these posts. Just click on the community icon over here to view the new members only posts just for you.